Yeah, I nodded and continued. Now take me to the warehouse to have a look. Have you sorted the goods yet? I need a lot of rare metals, so I want all of it. Just hand it all over to me, and I won't make things difficult for you. Seeing that I was really only after the metals, Yang Tianzhao secretly breathed a sigh of relief. I'll show you the way, he agreed immediately. At first, he was worried I'd demand common metals like iron, since they still had to hand those over to other factions. Coming up short would be a huge problem. He didn't expect that what I wanted were the rare metals no one paid attention to, things they still had plenty of because almost no faction cared about or needed them. At this moment, groups of emaciated workers emerged from the corners of the mine, having clearly heard the commotion in the tunnels. Those workers were all teenagers and children. The kids were wearing nothing but shorts, shirtless and covered in dirt. They looked completely disheveled, but 2 rows of white teeth stood out against their grimy faces. When they saw the Stone Shadow Squad and the guns in their hands, the entire mine instantly fell into a panic. A few children burst into terrified tears, while some of the braver teenagers picked up their pickaxes, their eyes full of vigilance. Yang Tianzhao was clearly the one calling the shots among these teenagers. With just a few words, he quickly calmed the chaotic atmosphere. Before long, the 2 teenagers in charge of the warehouse timidly led me, Zhang Hai, and Yang Tianzhao into a storage room dug deep inside the abandoned mine. Zero and Sun Kuan stayed outside to stand guard and keep an eye on the teenage miners. Under the watchful eyes of 2 mutants, none of them dared to harbor any thoughts of resistance. Walking around the warehouse, I couldn't help but be surprised. This place was truly impoverished. Most of it was just iron, ore, and high-quality copper, plus a little gold and a few other common metals. The rare metals were piled up in a corner, each bag clearly labeled. In other corners, there were only a few scattered bags of rice, some dry rations, and a small piece of meat, no bigger than 2 hands, hanging from a wooden post. Is this mutant beast meat? I turned and asked Yang Tianzhao. He instantly tensed up, because that was the only piece of meat they had left. Yes, it's mutant beast meat, but it's already gone bad. I even sprinkled a lot of salt on it, so it's really hard to swallow. He deliberately described it as terribly as possible, clearly wanting me to drop the idea. Seeing his nervous expression, I chuckled softly. How could I not understand what he was thinking? But a tiny piece of mutant beast meat like that wasn't even worth my attention. Seeing the smile on my face, Yang Tianzhao felt even more embarrassed. Thinking about it, it was ridiculous for him to worry that I'd snatch away that meager scrap of meat. Call your people in. Carry all these rare metals down to the foot of the mountain and put them next to our bus. I turned and said, my eyes sweeping over the bags of metal, my spirits instantly lifting. Each bag weighed at least 500 caddies, and some, like titanium, weighed up to 1,000. Titanium actually wasn't that expensive, but in the apocalypse, it was extremely hard to find, as most mining cities were located in remote provinces. This haul was enough to ensure I wouldn't have to worry about lacking rare metals to forge alloy armor or repair the base vehicle's equipment for a long time. You've gotten what you wanted. Can you let us go now? Yang Tianzhao looked at me with expectant eyes. After all, he was just an immature teenager. All his emotions were written plainly on his face. Don't be in such a rush, I said calmly. I still need you to help me make a few time bombs and some simple explosive packs. Those steel crossbows and the lifting system at the wellhead were all made by you, right? I believe this won't be too difficult for you either. Yang Tianzhao froze, a surge of anger flaring up in his heart. This guy was insatiably greedy. He could make time bombs, and explosive packs were even simpler, but explosives were extremely precious. Not to mention the time it took to mix them. He had already used a lot of them to fight against the exploitation of the people in Banju. Just thinking about it made his heart ache. Don't worry, I won't make you work for free, I said slowly. Let's make a deal. I'll trade you mutant beast meat and food. Mutant beast meat? Food. The anger in Yang Tianzhao's heart vanished instantly. Really? How do we trade? His eyes lit up, his voice stuttering slightly from excitement. Right now, what these teenage miners lacked the most was food. And for him personally, mutant beast meat was even more crucial, because every day he felt his strength waning. Hear me out first. I raised a hand to signal him. Besides that, I want you to come with us to Banju City as a guide. I'll pay you by the day. How much is the daily pay? Yang Tianzhao tried to stay calm, but his excited and expectant eyes completely betrayed him. They were truly too poor. Dozens of teenagers and children here exhausted themselves every day mining or just to exchange for meager supplies from other factions. It was no exaggeration to say they lived every day in hunger and thirst. If he could find another way to earn a living, of course he'd be thrilled. I'll pay you 5 days in advance, a Type 54 pistol, 80 rounds of ammo, and a bag of rice. We'll settle the rest after 5 days. I said in a deep voice. Right now, the Stone Shadow Squad still had quite a few firearms. We had seized a lot of guns and ammo from factions like Purple Wolf and Yangfeng. Especially the Type 54 pistol, we already had several in the squad, so it wasn't strictly necessary anymore. Moreover, before leaving Xiangshuahai, they had specially provided us with a large amount of food. The base vehicle storage was currently almost full. Rice wasn't a critical item for me, so trading it made perfect sense. I also knew exactly what this group of teenage miners needed the most. A Type 54 pistol. Yang Tianzhao practically drooled. In a world crawling with zombies, firearms were incredibly precious. An ordinary person with a gun in hand had a chance to face off against zombies, and could even stand up to mutants. Even though a Type 54 pistol wasn't as powerful as a rifle, it was still far superior to the Type 64 pistols they currently had, enough to make up for the mine's lack of firepower. Normally, you'd have to use mutant beast meat to trade for a gun. Now, just by acting as my guide for 5 days, he could get a Type 54 pistol. In Yang Tianzhao's eyes, this was like a pie falling from the sky. Plus, there was a bag of rice. The value of food in the current world went without saying. I agree to your terms. Yang Tianzhao thought for a moment, then nodded. Even though entering the inner city of Banju was dangerous and chaotic, compared to the pay I was offering, the risk was totally worth it. But I can't work for you for too long. If I'm not at the mine, this place will run into some trouble. Has someone got their eyes on your place? I caught on and asked sternly. There were many mines here, clearly a fat piece of meat. And since Yang Tianzhao was the only mutant among the miners, it wasn't surprising they'd be targeted. It is a bit troublesome, but I can handle it. Yang Tianzhao said hesitantly. These kids, besides me and a few other teenagers, are all rejects abandoned by the major factions in Banju. They're too young and have no value in their eyes, so they were pushed here to mine. They're all miserable kids. To me, they're like blood brothers. I can't leave them for too long. I have to take care of them. So, how much mutant beast meat and food do you want for the simple time bombs and explosive packs? I asked directly. Yang Tianzhao lifted his head, his spirits instantly lifting. The fact that the other party initiated the trade proved he was serious. Otherwise, with my strength, I could have easily used force to make him work. The power gap was too huge. He simply had no right to refuse. 1 explosive pack for 10 caddies of mutant beast meat and a bag of rice. 1 simple time bomb for 30 caddies of mutant beast meat and a bag of rice. I said calmly, I'll only wait for 1 to 2 days. I was always very careful. The intel I gathered earlier showed that Banju City was extremely complex, with armed forces far surpassing Subei's. Therefore, I needed to enhance our offensive means and boost the squad's combat power. Explosives and time bombs were powerful weapons I thought of after the battle with the mutant pufferfish in Shuangwu County. Right now, I relied heavily on the base vehicle, but there would be battles where relying solely on it wouldn't go smoothly. I needed highly destructive, compact, easy-to-carry weapons that could be equipped by the squad members. For example, the explosives could be given to Zhang Hai to throw. With his strength, throwing them 1,000 meters away wouldn't be a problem. As for the simple time bombs, they could be given to Sun Kuan, who had the web feet mutation and could climb any terrain to plant them. When dealing with major factions, this would definitely create unexpected results. From the moment I saw Yang Tianzhao, I knew I could turn the idea of these 2 weapons into reality. Deal. Within 2 days, I'll try to make as many as possible. Yang Tianzhao laughed happily, punching the air hard. Mutant beast meat and rice. Those were exactly what they were desperately lacking. As for my requests, aside from the simple time bombs, he was already very familiar with making explosives. In the mine, using explosives to blast rocks was common practice. With sulfur and nitrate mines nearby, making explosives was hardly a challenge for him. As for the time bombs, for an inventive genius like him, it was only a matter of time and materials. After about 15 minutes of discussion, Yang Tianzhao agreed to all my conditions. Air Fan, Shaowen, did you hear that? Hurry up and lead the guys to carry all the rare metals Brother Jiang asked for to his vehicle. Remember to bring back a bag of rice and the Type 54 pistol. Yang Tianzhao excitedly slapped the shoulder of the teenager named Air Fan next to him. These two teenagers were trembling with fear just a moment ago, but hearing the trade between Yang Tianzhao and our group felt like a dream. Just now they were like fish on a chopping block, and now the tables had turned. This kind of roller coaster life truly made people thrilled. Shortly after Air Fan and Shaowen rushed out, I heard cheers of joy echoing from outside the mine. I smirked slightly. This group of teenage miners was really easy to satisfy. Inside the mine shaft, when the other teenagers heard the details of the trade from Air Fan and Shaowen, the tense atmosphere instantly vanished. The way they looked at Zhang Hai was full of longing, no longer wary or hostile, but like they had just met a sugar daddy. Soon after, a group of enthusiastic teenagers began hauling the rare metals I needed outside, the clanging sounds echoing throughout the tunnels. We also got on the rail cart and followed the tracks out of the mine. Everything had been negotiated with Yang Tianzhao, so there was no reason to stay inside any longer. I just needed to wait for the results. I was confident these teenagers wouldn't dare pull any tricks. My squad's strength had been clearly demonstrated, and we knew exactly where their base was. If they dared to harbor any ulterior motives, the price would definitely be their lives. After all the rare metals were loaded onto the vehicle, I backed the bus up about 100 meters and parked it in a deserted, hidden mine shaft by the road. After all, according to Yang Tianzhao, other people occasionally came to this mine to trade. It was better to be careful and avoid unnecessary trouble. As night fell, the inside of the base vehicle became completely quiet. Jiang Zhuiying was still fast asleep, and the sparks of electricity that occasionally flashed across her body had gradually stabilized. I checked on my sister's condition, and seeing nothing unusual, I felt a bit more at ease and returned to the driver's cabin to rest. Just as I dozed off, Ren Shiyu's voice suddenly rang in my head. "Brother Jiang, I think something happened in the mine." I frowned, turned my head, and saw that she had sat up, her face serious, head bowed in concentration as she scanned the situation. "There are about a dozen people, including 2 mutants. It looks like they're fighting." Through the mental vision Ren Shiyu shared, I saw 2 bright red dots tangled together, and then a faint red dot suddenly vanished. The red dots represented mental energy. Once it disappeared completely, there was only one outcome: death. At the same time, a series of gunshots rang out in the night, mixed with piercing screams. Zhang Hai, Sun Kuan, and Zero almost instantly opened their eyes. "Zero, Zhang Hai, Sun Kuan, follow me. The rest of you stay here. Ren Shiyu, keep monitoring the situation," I said quickly, tucking the Type 54 pistol into my waistband and grabbing a Type 95 automatic rifle. In rugged, rocky terrain like this, a sniper rifle wasn't as effective as an automatic rifle. As soon as I jumped out of the vehicle, Zero dashed past me. In the darkness, her figure was as graceful as a hunting leopard, so agile she barely made a sound. Zhang Hai and Sun Kuan, holding shotguns, followed closely behind me. "Brother Jiang, they've all rushed into the mine." Ren Shiyu's voice echoed in my head again, just as we approached the mine entrance. My heart sank. They went inside the mine. That was a huge problem. In such a narrow space, the danger level would increase drastically. Arriving at the entrance, I saw Zero standing at the opening. "Captain, there's a dead bald guy. His head was pierced by a sharp metal object that looks like a fork. There's also a lot of blood and footprints on the ground. A fierce battle clearly just took place." Zero reported calmly, her eyes observing the corpse at her feet. On the ground lay an adult man with his head smashed in, and right at the entrance was a large pool of blood, the thick stench of it filling the air. "Zhang Hai, Sun Kuan, you two guard the entrance. Zero and I will go in." Staring into the deep, dark tunnel, I immediately made a decision. In a low-light environment like this, vision was a matter of life and death. Zero had cat blood, She could see as clearly in the dark as in broad daylight, and was excellent at stealth and assassination. I myself had evolved my brain nerves, giving me night vision and fast reflexes. Compared to us, Zhang Hai and Sun Kuan had far inferior night vision. If they followed us in, it would be very dangerous. Relying on Rin Shiyu's mental vision, I confirmed that the two mutants had gone deep into the mine, and one of them was definitely Yang Tianzhao. The sharp wound on that man's head was clearly caused by him. Yang Tianzhao's mutation was related to sharp metal. During the robbery earlier, I had seen him stab a burly scarecrow-like man right in the thigh. As for the other mutant, I believed Zero and I were more than capable of handling him. I had just made a deal with Yang Tianzhao, and I didn't want him to die a meaningless death. Compared to those scheming, adult survivors, I'd much rather cooperate with a simple teenager like him. After assigning tasks, Zero and I didn't use the rail cart, but followed the tracks, cautiously venturing deeper into the mine. The rail cart was too noisy and could easily cause unnecessary risks. Inside the pitch-black mine, a dozen men armed with machetes and rifles moved forward silently, following a massive man. The solar-powered lights in the mine had been turned off, and a thick darkness enveloped everything. "Brat, cry for me." In the darkness, a hoarse, ferocious voice rang out. As the man opened his mouth, his entire body rapidly sprouted a thick layer of fur, each strand as hard as metal. His arms transformed into sharp claws, and his feet were covered in thick pads that gripped the ground tightly. His ears stood up like a wolf's, and his eyes emitted an eerie green glow in the dark. The dim light didn't affect his vision at all. On the contrary, he could see everything around him clearly. In his massive, fan-like hands, the skinny arms of two boys, about 11 or 12 years old, were gripped tightly. Both were severely injured, their thighs covered in blood, flesh torn and flayed outward. Right then, his knife-like claws pierced straight into one boy's arm. Fresh blood instantly gushed out. The boy let out a muffled groan, gritting his teeth to keep from crying out. His face was pale from blood loss, but his eyes remained stubborn. "Brother Tianzhao, don't come out. They have guns," the injured boy suddenly shouted, his voice echoing through the long, enclosed tunnel. "Good job, you stubborn little brat." The beast mutant sneered, casually snatching a rifle from a subordinate and pointing it straight at the boy's head. "Let's see if your bones are harder, or my bullets." Just as he was about to pull the trigger, a figure darted out from a side tunnel, throwing a handful of metallic powder straight at him. The magnesium powder spread rapidly in the air, covering the men and making it hard to breathe. "Who's there?" Ambushed out of nowhere, the beast mutant roared fiercely. "Turn on the headlamps." Now, the two men behind him immediately switched on the lights on their hard hats. The light illuminated the powder clinging to the beast mutant and his gang, brightening the dark tunnel slightly. Under the light, he and his accomplices were covered in silvery gray metal powder. He, in particular, had his hair turned completely white. "Yang Dingfa, go ahead and shoot," a cold voice echoed from the tunnel. "I just scattered magnesium powder. You used to be a miner here, so you should know how flammable and explosive magnesium is, right? And this is a mine shaft. Do you understand the consequences of a massive explosion?" I saw Yang Tianzhao step out of the shadows, gritting his teeth. "Magnesium powder? Do you think I'm a kid?" Yang Dingfa sneered, but his finger on the trigger paused, a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. He didn't dare gamble with his own life. The barefoot don't fear those wearing shoes. Yang Tianzhao's face was pale, spitting out each word with fury. Behind him, in the deeper tunnels, several teenagers and children poked their heads out, looking at him with worried eyes. Like Yang Dingfa, a strange light flickered in Yang Tianzhao's eyes, clearly showing he also had night vision. Sharp, steel needle-like spikes began to sprout from his body. "Yang Dingfa, I hand over a pile of iron ore to that bastard Wang Shifu every month. Is that still not enough? Now you guys want to kill us all?" Yang Tianzhao's voice trembled with hatred. Yang Dingfa sneered. "Times have changed. Before, Boss Wang Shifu only needed ore. Now, he also needs people he can trust. You know the Mad War Alliance is fighting the Falling Star Society. This war won't stop until there's a winner. We found out you've been secretly trading with the Falling Star Society. Trying to play both sides? Not gonna happen. He licked his lips, his eyes full of malice. Also, you little brat, you kicked me out of the mine. I've been wanting to settle this score for a long time. With that, he violently hurled the two boys toward Yang Tianzhao. Behind them was a rock wall as hard as steel. If no one caught them, given Yang Dingfa's strength, the two kids would definitely be smashed to pieces. Yang Tianzhao groaned, instantly retracting the sharp spikes on his arms and rushing to catch the two boys. At the same time, Yang Dingfa's 10 fingers sprouted claws as sharp as blades, lunging straight for his throat. I don't need a gun to kill you. Yang Dingfa laughed savagely. Yang Tianzhao barely managed to toss the two boys aside before bracing himself to block the attack. In an instant, a terrifying force struck. His metallic arms clashed with the claws, letting out a piercing clang before cracking and breaking. His entire body was knocked back a step. Haha, little brat, you've got nothing left now, do you? You used to be so arrogant relying on your strength. Now that you don't have enough mutant beast meat to eat, your power has dropped drastically, hasn't it? Yang Dingfa laughed sinisterly, continuing to swing his claws fiercely. My heart sank. In the past, both Yang Tianzhao and Yang Dingfa were miners. After the apocalypse, most miners turned into zombies. Only the two of them evolved into mutants, but Yang Dingfa used his strength to enslave others, and was eventually driven out by Yang Tianzhao and the remaining survivors joining forces. Back then, Yang Tianzhao's mutation completely suppressed his. But now, due to the lack of mutant beast meat, his strength had weakened significantly. Right at that moment, a figure as light as the wind suddenly swooped down from above. A flash of a blade, without hesitation, aimed straight at Yang Dingfa's neck. Who? Yang Dingfa was terrified, swinging his claws wildly. The piercing sound of metal clashing rang out, but he couldn't escape the figure in front of him at all. Before him was a girl with cat ears, wielding a knife, her slashes raining down densely. Her footwork was light and ghostly, appearing and disappearing, sometimes on his left, sometimes leaping right above his head. Her explosive power, speed, reflexes, and knife skills were all chilling. Yang Dingfa was completely suppressed, with no way to retreat. He roared, his entire body emitting cracking sounds like crushed beans, clearly gathering all his strength. But right then, the cat-eared girl suddenly slipped behind him, appearing in the blink of an eye in front of the two men holding rifles. Two cold flashes of light gleamed, and the arms holding the guns of both men were severed simultaneously. Their agonizing screams echoed through the mine. The cat-eared girl quickly snatched the two guns, then turned to look at Yang Dingfa with a chillingly calm expression. Immediately after, the sound of rapid footsteps came from behind Yang Dingfa. I appeared, holding the Type 95 automatic rifle, its dark muzzle pointed straight at him. You, who are you? This place is full of magnesium powder. If you shoot, it'll cause a massive explosion. We'll all die together. Yang Dingfa turned pale when he recognized the gun in my hands. At such close range, just one shot and his chest would be blown open. Massive explosion? I sneered and pulled the trigger. Flames burst from the muzzle, and Yang Dingfa's massive beast-like body was instantly blown backward. His chest exploded into a horrifying bloody hole, his body flying back several meters before slamming hard into the mine wall. His eyes were wide open, dying with a grievance. Even at the moment of his death, he couldn't believe I actually dared to pull the trigger. Yang Tianzhao let out a roar and charged straight at the remaining men. Facing two mutants, Zero and Yang Tianzhao, those armed survivors were nothing but big, useless sheep. In just a moment, over a dozen bloody corpses lay scattered across the mine shaft. Blood dyed the ground red, mixing with the dirt into a sickening, sticky sludge. Brother Jiang, thank you. Yang Tianzhao, covered in blood, stood panting in front of me, his eyes full of gratitude. If we hadn't shown up in time, he probably would have died here. The other teenage miners looked at us with eyes full of both gratitude and fear. It's nothing, I said calmly. I haven't gotten the bombs and explosives from you yet. How could I let you die? Yang Tianzhao just stood there stunned. Brother Jiang, how did you know I didn't scatter real magnesium powder? He asked curiously. First, magnesium powder is extremely explosive. In an enclosed space like a mine shaft, even a little friction is enough to cause a massive explosion. Second, you value the lives of those kids too much. You wouldn't let them die with you. I held up 2 fingers and said concisely. Yang Tianzhao fell silent, the way he looked at me gradually changing. But Brother Jiang, you guys are outsiders. Yang Dingfa was one of the 8 leaders of the Mad War Alliance, under Wang Shifu's faction. Now that he's dead, Wang Shifu will definitely send people to investigate. This is going to be very troublesome, he said worriedly. After that life-and-death battle, he felt an inexplicable closeness to me, so he couldn't help but worry about our safety. If Wang Shifu dares to cause trouble, we'll just kill him. I replied casually, as if talking about something trivial. After all, we only came to Banju City to do a few things, and we'd leave once we were done. With the base vehicle in my hands, I really wasn't afraid of factions like the district leaders in Banju. Yang Tianzhao's jaw dropped, unable to speak for a long time. Wang Shifu's faction was no small deal. He had over a dozen mutants under his command and was one of the top figures in Banju. You couldn't just kill him because you said so. He felt like I was bragging, but my tone was so confident it made it hard to doubt. Brother Jiang, you've got guts. Yang Tianzhao forced a smile and gave me a thumbs up. Your smile is too fake. I glanced at him. Yang Tianzhao was speechless. Without waiting for his reaction, I patted his shoulder. Hurry up and get to work. I'm still waiting for your explosives and time bombs. Right. Yang Tianzhao smiled awkwardly and scratched his head. While we were talking, the teenage miners had coordinated to clean up the scene. Some dragged the bodies deep into the tunnels to bury them, while others used crushed rocks to cover the bloodstains on the ground. Brother Tianzhao, Dongming, and Liangzi won't stop bleeding. Yang Dingfa's claws were definitely poisoned. Air Fan cried as he bandaged the 2 boys lying on the ground. The pierced arms were still bleeding profusely, soaking through the bandages. The wounds were pitch black and even showed signs of necrosis, clearly poisoned. The 2 boys were pale and weakly passed out. Do we have any hemostatic medicine? Yang Tianzhao grabbed Air Fan's shoulders, his voice trembling. There's no medicine left in the warehouse. Air Fan shook his head, his eyes red. Give them to me. I stepped forward, glanced at the 2 boys, and hoisted them both onto my shoulders. With my current physique, carrying 2 kids was no trouble at all. I knew very well that with Li Yusin's medical abilities, this kind of injury was a piece of cake. All she had to do was remove the mutant toxins, stop the bleeding, and bandage them up. Brother Jiang. Seeing me step in to help, Yang Tianzhao was both grateful and hesitant. There's a doctor on my vehicle, I replied. Thank you, Brother Jiang. Yang Tianzhao said hurriedly. In this day and age, doctors were incredibly rare. For people like them, getting sick or injured and just having medicine to take was already a huge blessing. A doctor was something they couldn't even dream of. He didn't expect my small squad to actually have a doctor. This meant his 2 brothers could very well be saved. Don't thank me. I turned back to Yang Tianzhao. Just make more explosives and time bombs. With that, Zero and I left. Brother Jiang, don't worry, I'll definitely do a great job. Yang Tianzhao didn't expect me to help without attaching any conditions. He didn't know how to repay me, so he could only bow deeply, his heart full of gratitude. After the 2 teenage miners were brought onto the base vehicle, under Li Yusin's treatment, they quickly woke up. When Zhang Hai brought the fully recovered boys back to the mine, Yang Tianzhao and the other teenagers were incredibly grateful to the Stone Shadow Squad. Not only were the 2 boys completely healed, but even the health issues they had accumulated from overworking were completely resolved. Seeing the 2 kids lively and full of energy, an indescribable sense of gratitude swelled in Yang Tianzhao's heart. On the morning of the 3rd day, Yang Tianzhao, looking disheveled and carrying a large fertilizer sack on his shoulder, ran excitedly toward my base vehicle. Brother Jiang, I'm done, he shouted from afar toward me sitting in the driver's cabin. His thin face was full of excitement, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. My spirits instantly lifted. I took the sack, opened it to check, and a smile appeared on my face. Inside were 10 homemade explosive packs and 7 simple time bombs. The strong smell of ammonium nitrate hit my nose. It's just that, because I used homemade ammonium nitrate explosives, these packs are a bit heavy. Each one is over 4 caddies. But the detonators and fuses are top quality. As for the time bombs, due to a lack of materials, They're pretty simple, but I used the best detonators from the mine. I guarantee the blast will be very strong. Seeing me silently inspecting them, Yang Tianzhao started to feel a bit uneasy. Great job. I looked up, smiling in satisfaction. Actually, I originally thought he'd only be able to make 5 or 6 packs at most, because explosives are both dangerous and complicated. I didn't expect there to be 10 packs. He clearly poured his heart into this. This time, the Stone Shadow Squad had a massive haul. Not only did we get thousands of caddies of rare metals, but also explosives and time bombs. Zhang Hai brings 17 bags of rice and 310 caddies of mutant beast meat into the mine. I called out into the vehicle. Just hearing the words, mutant beast meat, Yang Tianzhao jumped, his mouth watering. He immediately snapped back to reality and hurriedly waved his hands. No need. No need. 15 bags of rice and 200 caddies of meat is enough. Brother Jiang, you're our benefactor, and you saved my 2 brothers' lives. I can't accept this much. Just take it all. I patted his shoulder. We'll be staying in Banju for a while. As long as you do a good job, consider it an advance reward. Yes, Yang Tianzhao swallowed hard, an indescribable emotion welling up inside him. He looked up at me, his eyes resolute. Brother Jiang, you can count on me. I was a bit surprised, looked closely at the teenager for a moment, and smiled. His personality was very simple, grateful, loyal, and righteous. To me, who the guide was didn't really matter as long as they listened, but I still had a bit of a soft spot for people like Yang Tianzhao. In the apocalypse, the dark side of humanity was fully exposed. Yet these abandoned teenagers, living in hunger and exploitation like this, they hadn't turned vicious. That was truly rare. All right, go back and sort out your brothers. We're heading out early. Yes, Brother Jiang, I'll go right away. For the group of teenage miners, receiving so much rice and mutant beast meat was happier than celebrating the new year. They ate their fill at the bottom of the mine, then started packing up to move. Even though Wang Shifu hadn't sent anyone to investigate Yang Dingfa's death yet, it would be discovered sooner or later. They couldn't stay in their old hideout anymore. The teenagers dug a secret tunnel at the bottom of the mine and moved all their supplies to another secret mine shaft nearby. Actually, they had prepared for this long ago, having quite a few secret shafts ready just in case of the worst-case scenario. By the afternoon, Yang Tianzhao finished handling his chores and set off with me. Stepping onto the base vehicle and seeing the interior, Yang Tianzhao was stunned. Before the apocalypse, he was born into a poor miner's family and had never seen an RV, let alone a luxurious base vehicle like this. But he didn't ask too many questions. He just quietly remembered his duty and guided the base vehicle toward the southeast of Banju City. The southeast was the headquarters of one of the 3 major factions in Banju, the Huyang People's Front. Before the apocalypse, Banju was a prosperous mining city with a large area, dense population, and skyrocketing land prices. The booming mining economy drove rapid urbanization, connecting the suburbs to the city. The Huyang People's Front was stationed in the Longyang New District, which used to be a suburban county. Far from the city center where the Mad War Alliance and the Falling Star Society were fighting fiercely, it became a rare peaceful area. Smaller factions also frequently came here to trade, making Longyang New District a famous underground trading hub. Along the way, the base vehicle occasionally encountered a few speeding modified motorcycles. The survivors on the bikes, holding machetes and large axes, stared greedily at the base vehicle. But when Zhang Hai and Sun Kuan stuck their shotguns out, they immediately fled. In the distance, plumes of black smoke rose from the city center, accompanied by massive explosions. The Falling Star Society and the Mad War Alliance are fighting really hard. They even brought out homemade bombs. Who knows how many people will die this time? Yang Tianzhao looked toward the black smoke and shook his head. How long have these 2 factions been fighting? I asked. After all, I had just arrived in Banju. It was necessary to understand the conflict between the Falling Star Society and the Mad War Alliance, at least to avoid unnecessary trouble. This time they've been fighting for over half a month. Actually, these 2 factions started clashing right after the apocalypse. As Yang Tianzhao guided the way, he told me about the disputes and territories of the Falling Star Society and the Mad War Alliance. The Falling Star Society currently had over 100 mutants, occupying the Puxian and Liqing areas. The Mad War Alliance had 8 district leaders. They had about a dozen fewer mutants than the Falling Star Society, but their mutants were significantly stronger. In battles, the Mad War Alliance often gained the upper hand by mobilizing a large number of ordinary survivors to fight. Their territory was in the southwest of the city, including Chaoha and Shengjiang. These two factions occupied almost 3/4 of the entire Banju city. From the beginning of the apocalypse until now, they had fought ceaselessly. Dozens of mutants had died on both sides, and the blood feud was so deep there was no possibility of reconciliation. The most recent major conflict had lasted for over 20 days, with people dying almost every day. While Yang Tianzhao was still talking, the base vehicle gradually entered the Longyang New district. At this moment, my eyes were drawn to an unusual sight. In the northeast of the Longyang New district, near the city center, a massive wall over 10 meters high stood tall. In front of it was dense barbed wire and a deep moat. The wall stretched for thousands of meters, with some sections even cutting straight through buildings in the area. There was no end in sight. The area near the wall was incredibly desolate, with a few dried-up corpses still hanging from the barbed wire. Thick vines covered almost the entire wall and fence. Even under the scorching sun, this area exuded a gloomy, chilling vibe. Such a massive defensive structure clearly cost a tremendous amount of manpower and resources. What is this wall used for? I stared at it, an ominous feeling rising in my heart. The Forbidden Zone. Yang Tianzhao looked at the wall, unable to hide the fear in his eyes. It's full of zombies inside. The Falling Star Society and the Mad War Alliance have walls like this too. They all lock zombies inside. I heard there are even mutant zombies deeper in. The Mad War Alliance usually deals with traitors by throwing them straight in there. Once when I walked by, I even heard agonizing screams echoing from inside the wall. Yang Tianzhao only knew the rough situation inside the Forbidden Zone. This wall was built jointly by the 3 major factions of Banju, the Mad War Alliance, the Falling Star Society, and the Huyang People's Front. They paid a massive price to surround and trap most of the zombies in the inner city area. The true secrets inside the Forbidden Zone were only known to the top leaders of these 3 factions. I noticed that whether it was survivors riding motorcycles or driving off-road vehicles passing by, they all actively steered clear of that high wall. This was enough to show how terrified the survivors of Banju were of the Forbidden Zone. The bus continued for another 5 or 6 minutes before I saw a heavily armed group of people behind the barbed wire. Behind the fence was an 8-meter-high wall, and right behind that were 2 adjacent 18-story commercial buildings. On the upper floors, men armed with rifles could be clearly seen standing guard. A temporary elevator was installed on the outside of the wall, housing a heavy machine gun pointed straight at the main gate. Clearly, this entire area had been transformed into a solid fortress. At the main gate, several armed men stood guard. Outside, it was packed with motorcycles, off-road vehicles, and most notably, several heavy trucks reinforced with thick steel. My bus didn't look eye-catching at all among this pile of vehicles. Brother Jiang, our vehicle isn't allowed inside, except for the vehicles of the Huyang People's Front. When we reached the gate, Yang Tianzhao reminded me. I nodded. I came here to find information about Ren Yunshe. Whether I brought the vehicle in or not didn't really matter. Besides, if something really happened, this gate wouldn't be able to stop me. There were a total of 3 checkpoints on the concrete wall. Each checkpoint was a thick iron door, guarded by armed men holding rifles with highly vigilant expressions. Anyone who wanted to enter had to fill out a form and undergo a thorough search. The inspection process was extremely strict. Not far from the 3 checkpoints was a tall wooden pole with several corpses hanging from it. Half of their faces had been blown off, their bodies baking in the sun, displaying the naked brutality of this place. Under the scorching sun, a long line of people still waited for inspection, including quite a few mutants, but no one dared to open their mouths to complain. I only brought Zhang high off the vehicle. Zero and the others stayed behind in the base vehicle. We lined up at the first checkpoint. When it was almost our turn, a scuffle suddenly broke out at the front. A skinny middle-aged mutant was denied entry for some unknown reason. He angrily argued a few words, and then a man over 2 meters tall stepped out from inside the checkpoint. The man had a face full of scars, looking like it was pieced together from torn flesh. His fierce aura made people uncomfortable. With just one glance, I could tell his mutation was extremely powerful, far surpassing the people around him that I had sensed. The middle-aged mutant clearly recognized the scarred man's identity, his face instantly turning pale. The scarred man didn't say a word, just stood there looking down with cold eyes. Finally, the middle-aged mutant gritted his teeth and left, climbing onto an off-road motorcycle and speeding away. Watching the fleeing vehicle, the scarred man let out a cold snort. Just as he turned around to head back into the checkpoint, he suddenly stopped. His gaze shifted to me and Zhang Hai, and finally landed squarely on Yang Tianzhao, sharp as a knife. Have you finally thought it through? You want to join the Huyang People's Front? His voice was cold, but to Yang Tianzhao, it was clearly not unfamiliar. Hi, Uncle Zhang. I'm not here for that. Yang Tianzhao smiled awkwardly. Facing the scarred man, Zhang Jiming, his expression was briefly complicated. I'm just bringing my two big brothers here to do some business. Zhang Jiming was a bit surprised. Until now, Yang Tianzhao had always only hung around with that group of teenage minors. He had never heard of him having any big brothers. He took a good look at me and Zhang Hai, confirming that we were both strangers he had never seen before. Uncle, if there's nothing else, I'll head inside first. Yang Tianzhao said quickly, simultaneously winking at me and Zhang Hai. I thought for a moment, then followed him. This is the pass. I'm vouching for these two. Yang Tianzhao handed a piece of paper to the guard at the checkpoint. To enter the market of the Huyang People's Front, a pass was mandatory. Strangers needed to fill out an identity form and be vouched for by someone with a pass. This policy helped the front maintain order in a chaotic world. No one dared to casually cause trouble. After Zhang Hai and I finished filling out the forms, Yang Tianzhao led us inside. Right then, a deep voice rang out from behind. Tianzhao, there's no future at the mine. For a mutant like you, joining the Huyang People's Front is the right path. Yang Tianzhao trembled slightly, but didn't turn around, only walking faster to get inside. You know that guy well? I asked. Hearing my question, Yang Tianzhao sighed. Brother Jiang, he used to be a very strong mutant at our mine. He was in charge of all the trades. But for some reason, he suddenly joined the Huyang People's Front, and since then, he stopped caring about us. Even when we were bullied by Yang Dingfa, he didn't come back to help. Recently, I had a conflict with Wang Shifu of the Mad War Alliance, so I came here to trade. I didn't expect Uncle Zhang to keep trying to pull me into the front. When bringing up the past, Yang Tianzhao's expression clearly darkened. The Huyang People's Front is one of the three major factions in Banju, after all. Joining wouldn't be bad. You could also take care of your brothers, I said. For a teenager like Yang Tianzhao, that was truly a huge opportunity. The teenage miners were abandoned just because they had no value. If he joined a major faction, they would have someone to rely on too. But clearly, Yang Tianzhao didn't want to. Hearing my words, he looked a bit uncomfortable. He quickly glanced around to make sure no one was eavesdropping, then lowered his voice. The immovable Ming Wang, the leader of the Huyang People's Front, is said to have a very mysterious mutation. Anyone who joins the front becomes weird. Weird? I asked. They become like them. Right in front of the market entrance, an armed patrol squad walked by. I didn't pay attention at first, but now I noticed that all of them had shaved heads, their shiny bald heads acting like an identification mark. These people walked silently, their expressions so stern they were chilling. Yang Tianzhao pointed at the bald patrol squad. By now, we were standing at the entrance of the market. Both sides of the street were lined with stalls, crowded with people, the noise of buying and selling endless. In the distance was a 3-story building, bustling just as much inside. But amidst that lively atmosphere, the bald patrol squad was completely silent, their eyes so sharp they carried a fanatical gleam. This kind of fanaticism I had seen in strictly trained soldiers in large safe zones, but it was very rare among ordinary survivors. What caught my attention even more was that all of them were mutants. Mutants naturally had a much higher status than ordinary survivors, yet here they were dispatched to patrol the streets. This really didn't make sense. Clearly, something was wrong. Right then, Rin Shiyu's voice suddenly rang in my head. Brother Jiang, if you find information about Rin Yunche, You should leave this place as soon as possible. Her voice was faint, as if obstructed by something. There's an extremely powerful mental-type mutant here. My mental energy is heavily weakened. It took a lot of effort just to send this signal. This place makes me feel very uneasy. Shiyu, be careful, I immediately warned her. Based on Yang Tianzhao's words, I guess the mental-type mutant Shiyu mentioned was very likely the immovable Mingwang. Yes, don't worry, Brother Jiang, Rin Shiyu replied. She narrowed the range of her mental field, no longer scanning the area, only maintaining a defensive state. But if the other party intended to intrude or launch a mental attack, she would definitely react immediately. With the evolutionary crystal still not fully digested in her body, Rin Shiyu was completely capable of launching multiple consecutive mental attacks. Enough to make any mental-type mutant think twice. The immovable Ming Wang didn't seem to make any moves. Perhaps he hadn't paid attention to newcomers like us yet. As we continued deeper into the trading area, I suddenly felt a sharp gaze following the three of us. But when I turned to look, I didn't notice anything unusual. Could I have seen wrong? I thought to myself. Right at that moment, a small bird flew out from the main hall. I noticed it was a carrier pigeon. In the apocalypse, carrier pigeons were nearly extinct. Seeing one here was indeed very strange. Compared to the stalls outside, the trading area inside was clearly much more high-end. Outside, they sold all sorts of junk, blood-stained dry food in dirty packaging, completely chaotic. But inside, it was all mutant beast meat, firearms, rare metals, and carefully modified off-road vehicles, neatly displayed on iron tables. Next to each iron table stood a scantily clad woman, flaunting her body to attract all eyes. The sellers looked very powerful, always accompanied by mutant guards. When Yang Tianzhao, Zhang Hai, and I walked in, a few greedy gazes swept over us, but quickly moved away. After all, we didn't look rich. I was an ordinary person with no mutation. Yang Tianzhao was just a kid with a weak mutation, and Zhang Hai was bulky, but only a rearguard mutant. Yang Tianzhao's eyes lit up when he saw the mutant meat and modified off-road vehicles, but he only dared to look, not buy. He led me to a red table in a secluded corner. On the table lay a red folder, and behind it sat a goatee-sporting old man wearing gold-rimmed glasses. His eyes constantly scanned the hall, full of cunning. Yang Tianzhao stepped up and said he wanted to do business. This old man, surnamed Qin, was very famous in the Huyang People's Front trading area. He had been here since the early days, his background unknown, but he held countless pieces of information and traded in everything. He looked down at Yang Tianzhao, then glanced at me and Zhang Hai, a faint smile on his lips, and asked if he was the kid who usually traded metals. His suddenly welcoming attitude surprised Yang Tianzhao, because previously, this old man was snobbish and had never paid him any mind. Yang Tianzhao introduced himself and said he wanted to buy some information. Old Qin wasn't in a hurry. He brewed tea and sipped it leisurely, telling us to wait 15 minutes because he was still waiting for someone to trade with. Yang Tianzhao looked at me apologetically. He had no power here, so if they made things difficult for him, he just had to endure it. Zhang Hai called out to me impatiently. It was obvious the old man was messing with us, but I just told him to wait. Since we were already here, a little more time wouldn't hurt. When he finished his tea, old Qin muttered that it was time and looked up at Yang Tianzhao. Yang Tianzhao excitedly asked if they could trade now, but the old man just snorted, placed a red piece of paper in front of him, and said he actually wanted to do a deal with him. Yang Tianzhao looked at it and froze. It was a wanted poster searching for the mutant Yang Tianzhao male. 14 years old, metal bone mutation. Bounty, 100 caddies of mutant meat. The one who issued the bounty was District Leader Wang Shifu of District 8, Mad War Alliance. Old Qin said the order had just arrived, and he had walked right into the trap. His eyes sharpened, his hunched back straightened, and his muscles bulged. It turned out he was a body enhancement mutant. I frowned, suddenly realizing the tracking gaze from when we entered belonged to him. Outside, it suddenly got noisy. I turned around and saw a group of armed men rushing in and surrounding us. Leading them was a skinny, cold-faced man, with the carrier pigeon I had just seen flying out of the hall perched on his shoulder. I instantly understood. The moment he spotted Yang Tianzhao, old Qin released the pigeon to send a message. All the stalling was just to wait for these guys. The skinny-faced man smiled sinisterly, saying the bounty had only been up for a day and Yang Tianzhao had already come to deliver his life. He asked where Yang Dingfa was, completely ignoring me and Zhang Hai. The originally bustling hall suddenly fell silent. Many mutants sensed danger and pulled their people away. Someone whispered that they were from the Mad War Alliance, telling others not to watch the show, and that these 3 kids were out of luck. Daring to provoke Zhou Yutong, the right-hand man of Wang Shifu, the leader of District 8. Someone else said the Mad War Alliance was fighting the Falling Star Society and still came to catch someone. This kid must have offended them to death. Even though there were a few big shots here, they didn't dare act tough in front of the Mad War Alliance, because the ban only stopped the small fry, while someone like Zhou Yutong still came and went to trade. At this moment, a few bald, burly men from the Huyang People's Front walked in, looking displeased. They warned Zhou Yutong not to start a fight in the market. If he angered the immovable Ming Wang, even the Mad War Alliance wouldn't be able to save him. Zhou Yutong smiled, saying he only needed 1 minute to resolve this, and then he'd leave. The bald men agreed and left. Throughout the conversation, they treated us like air. Yang Tianzhao's heart sank. He thought there was a turning point, but it turned out no one even asked him a word. He forced a smile and asked if it was a misunderstanding, saying he had only been mining these past few days and just came out today. Zhou Yutong sneered, told him to stop playing dumb, and suddenly delivered a powerful kick. Caught off guard, Yang Tianzhao was kicked to the ground, groaning in pain. While struggling, he kept winking at me. Yang Tianzhao was burning with anxiety. He knew very well that once caught, there was definitely no way out. But he didn't want to drag me and Zhang Hai down. After all, we were just outsiders here to trade, and we had helped him a lot. He kept giving me signals, but I acted like I didn't see them, only frowning slightly. Zhou Yutong locked his cold, sharp eyes on Yang Tianzhao's face, completely ignoring me standing right next to him. He gritted his teeth and cursed, saying Yang Dingfa received orders from district leader Wang to kill Yang Tianzhao and seize the mine. As a result, Yang Tianzhao didn't die, but Yang Dingfa went missing. He demanded to know where he was hiding him. A ferocious, burly man standing next to him spoke up, his voice booming, his mouth stitched with iron wire, wearing an iron ring on his head, and holding blood-stained torture tools. He said there was no need to waste words. Just catch him, and they'd have ways to make him talk. Idiots. I dropped 2 words, my voice very light, but clear. Zhou Yutong froze. They had seen me when they came in, but only considered me an ordinary survivor with no mutant fluctuations. Now, a nobody like me actually dared to curse them in public. The ferocious man reached out to grab my neck, but I flicked my hand. With a smack, I knocked his hand away. The strike was clean and heavy as a hammer, making his hand tremble. He looked at me in confusion, clearly not expecting me to have such skills. I said calmly that Yang Dingfa was dead, killed by me. The crowd around us instantly erupted in murmurs, unable to believe it. How could an ordinary person with no mutation like me kill Yang Dingfa? Old Sheen standing nearby laughed out loud, calling me naive for thinking the Mad War Alliance would let people go if I took the blame. He said we'd probably all die together. The old man treated this like an entertaining comedy. Zhang Hai curled his lips, shook his head, and said they were hopelessly stupid. Yang Dingfa was indeed killed by me, blown into a pile of meat by my gun. Otherwise, with Yang Tianzhao's strength, and having not eaten mutant meat for a long time, how could he have done it? As he spoke, he pulled Yang Tianzhao up, glancing at the Mad War Alliance crowd with a provocative look. Old Sheen felt annoyed at being looked down upon, but then told himself there was no need to bicker with dying men. Yang Tianzhao couldn't take it anymore and called out my name loudly, feeling both moved and worried. He was afraid I was being too reckless and that all 3 of us would have no way out. Right at that moment, the sound of clapping came from outside. A middle-aged man wearing a fur coat, his hair slicked back, walked in escorted by a group of burly men. He walked very leisurely, his eyes bright and cold. Zhou Yutong and the others hurriedly greeted him, calling him boss, calling him district leader. Old Sheen sat down, took a sip of tea, and muttered that Wang Shifu had arrived. This time the 3 of us were definitely dead. He was even happy thinking about the 100 caddies of mutant meat about to fall into his hands. Wang Shifu glanced at me and said casually that since I dared to admit killing Yang Dingfa, he wouldn't make things difficult. He told us to commit suicide to save time. A light sentence, but it decided life and death. I stared at Wang Shifu, my eyes unblinking. Suddenly, the starseed's voice rang in my head. Faint alien plant energy fluctuation detected. Activating the base vehicle's hidden evolution project, Alien Plant Cultivation Lab. I was instantly shocked. The last time the starseed actively warned me was in Star City, when it detected a special fluctuation that led to Daluo City, destroying the special mutant zombie and activating the base vehicle's third form. I knew very well that the starseed actively warning me was extremely rare. This proved that this hidden evolution project was incredibly important. My eyes locked onto the source of the fluctuation, and that source came right from Wang Shifu. In such hot weather, he was wearing a thick fur coat without sweating. It clearly wasn't just for showing off. I quickly concluded in my heart that the alien plant must be hidden on Wang Shifu, and this time, I absolutely would not miss the opportunity. Being stared at by me like that, the calm facade on Wang Shifu's face gradually cracked, anger flaring in his eyes. With his status as a district leader of the Mad War Alliance in Banju City, he had over a dozen mutants under his command. In the past, ordinary people who met him were always subservient and respectful. Who would dare be so insolent? Yet the person standing in front of him showed no fear at all, calmly staring straight at him even after hearing his death sentence. It made him extremely uncomfortable. In his eyes, letting us commit suicide was already a favor. Dying quickly meant less pain. But if he let his subordinates do it, we'd only suffer. Because of my attitude, he decided to let his men make a move and kill us all. When the time came, he'd definitely get to see us crying and begging for mercy. Moreover, there were many other factions watching inside and outside the trading hall, even people from the Falling Star Society. With his status as a district leader, he couldn't allow an ordinary survivor to make him lose face. Right then, Rin Shiyu's voice rang in my head, warning me to be careful because the other party had murderous intent. I didn't need her to tell me that. Wang Shifu didn't care about our lives at all. He just saw us as ants to be crushed. Then Rin Shiyu added that Ing and Zero had arrived. I paused slightly, and then the sound of whistling wind came from behind, accompanied by a few miserable screams. The burly men blocking the door were sent flying outside. Ing, in a tight black leather outfit, her figure alluring, appeared at the door with the cat-eared Zero. They immediately stood on either side to protect me, their vigilant eyes sweeping the surroundings. I breathed a sigh of relief. It was natural for Ing to come since her mission was to protect me, and Zero definitely came because Rin Shiyu was worried. Outside the concrete wall of the Huyang people's front, quite a few guards had already collapsed on the ground. Their heads throbbed as if splitting open, having just suffered a massive mental attack. Rin Shiyu breathed a sigh of relief inside. The evolutionary crystal allowed her to strike fast and hard, so fast that even the immovable Ming Wang didn't have time to react. Wang Shifu narrowed his eyes, killing intent shooting out, mocking me for being a guy who relied on women for protection. In his eyes, the two women in front of him, one a mutant, the other with decent skills, would still end up dead. I kept looking straight at him, making him even more uncomfortable. At this moment, old Qin, who was sitting and drinking tea, suddenly lit up. He hurriedly spoke up, asking Wang Shifu to spare them and leave the two girls to him. Because outside it was all zombies, and the women were haggard, but these two looked very beautiful. He was sure Wang Shifu would like them. Hearing this, Wang Shifu's expression softened a bit. Despite his great power, he didn't dare offend old Qin, because the nephew the old man mentioned was Chang Shunkai, the big boss of the Mad War Alliance. Thanks to this connection, old Qin could run wild in Banju, acting as an information broker right inside the trading hall of the Huyang people's front and still being respected, not even having to pay fees. Finally, Wang Shifu smiled and said he'd give old Qin face and leave the two girls. Old Qin laughed gleefully along, as if our fates had already been sealed. In the midst of that, Ing and I had a very brief exchange. Ing asked coldly if the alien plant energy fluctuation was coming from this person. Then she pointed straight at Wang Shifu, waiting for me to decide if he should live or die. I replied very calmly, Life or death doesn't matter. Getting what we need is enough. Those words fell perfectly into the ears of Wang Shifu and Old Qin, causing the smiles on their faces to instantly freeze. Wang Shifu's feeling at this moment was exactly like a male lion watching two little white rabbits seriously discussing whether to stew him or deep fry him. His face instantly changed, turning as green as a leaf, the veins on his neck bulging. He roared, "You want to die?" The deep roar that came from his throat didn't sound human, vibrating so hard it made everyone's ears ring. In the hall, a few mutants who were still confident in their strength instantly turned pale and turned to flee without a second word. Wang Shifu's entire body was suddenly covered in a golden glow. His hair turned bright gold, and his muscles bulged to the point where his clothes looked like they were about to tear. He leaned forward, his spine curving, and stomped hard on the floor. The marble floor let out a crack, small fissures spreading out. His entire body shot into the air like a heavy artillery shell, charging straight at me. "Zhang Han!" I shouted, simultaneously springing back to slide to the side. With my current physique and reflexes, dodging this wasn't hard for me. Zhang Hai was already prepared. He took a long stride forward, his 10 sinewy fingers bulging. He roared and met Wang Shifu's charging body head-on. A massive force struck, pushing Zhang Hai back continuously. With every step back, the floor cracked, the crunching sounds piercing the ears. He retreated 5 steps in a row, the floor torn up as if a ferocious beast had just trampled over it. But he finally managed to block Wang Shifu. The moment Wang Shifu erupted, the people from the Mad War Alliance reacted, but my squad's movements were faster. As soon as I dashed away, before I could even stand up straight, I drew the 2 Type 54 pistols in my hands, the muzzles aimed straight at the 6 men holding rifles. Bang! Bang! The gunshots rang out rapidly. Before my eyes, everything seemed to slow down. One guy had just raised his gun when a bullet pierced straight through his temple. With a thwack, his head was drilled through, blood splattering everywhere. After a series of gunshots and agonizing screams, all the gunmen from the Mad War Alliance were shot in the head or heart, collapsing to the ground with heavy thuds. The crowd watching the commotion scrambled in panic to find a place to hide, some dropping to the floor and covering their heads. No one expected that an ordinary-looking guy, who seemed easy to push around like me, would have such terrifying shooting skills. Every shot was fatal, and I was firing 2 guns simultaneously, adjusting to 2 completely different directions with absolute precision, practically creating a 180-degree dead angle of fire. The burly man holding the torture tools roared in anger, his lips splitting open to reveal terrifying steel teeth. He charged forward, his tongue suddenly shooting out, covered in green moss that emitted a highly corrosive smell, clearly poisonous. I barely managed to roll away to dodge. The spot where I just stood was corroded into a white streak. Immediately after, a skinny figure lunged forward, his entire body covered in steel spikes, hugging the burly man tightly as they both rolled on the ground. It was Yang Tianzhao. The deep piercing steel spikes made the man scream, but the tongue wrapped tightly around Yang Tianzhao's body, white smoke rising from it. Flesh and blood corroded, and the dripping toxic blood burned holes right through his clothes. Right at that moment, a figure descended from the sky. A fierce kick slammed straight into the brute's head, unleashing a crack so loud it sounded like his skull was about to shatter. The girl continued to swing her leg like a steel whip, striking an incoming mutant and sending him staggering. He howled and cursed, his arm in so much pain it felt like it was about to snap. His confidence in his own strength vanished before this beautiful girl in black leather, especially since she wasn't even a mutant. Before he could even steady himself, a bullet from my Type 54 pistol pierced straight through the center of his forehead. He widened his eyes in sheer disbelief before collapsing to the ground. Immediately after, Zhu Yutong appeared, dual curved blades in hand, charging rapidly toward me. His entire body emitted a sickly green glow, his forehead mutating into insectoid compound eyes, densely packed with countless tiny lenses. His torso elongated, and his speed and explosive power rivaled that of a cheetah. My brain instantly analyzed his trajectory. I raised my hand and fired a shot, but Zhu Yutong twisted his body in an S shape, dodging the bullet. A speed-type mutant. I was a little surprised. This was the first time I had missed a shot since my cranial nerves were activated. Zhu Yutong laughed maniacally, mocking that my marksmanship was useless against a speed-type mutant who had awakened an insect bloodline like him. With compound eyes that granted him nearly 360-degree vision, none of my movements could escape his sight. But at that exact moment, a ghostly silhouette appeared right behind him. A cold, sharp blade, like the scythe of the Grim Reaper, slashed straight toward his neck. Zhu Yutong turned his head in panic, meeting Zero's cold face, her clear cat-like eyes flashing with murderous intent. He hastily raised his dual curved blades to block. With a loud clash, he narrowly parried the fatal blow, cold sweat already pouring down his face. The immense downward force from the blade left him completely suppressed by Zero, unable to move an inch. Right then, a gunshot rang out. In a moment of absolute despair, Zhu Yutong only had time to think, "I'm done for," before an agonizing pain erupted in his chest. Looking down, a massive hole had been blown right where his heart used to be. He slumped to the ground. The two Type 54 pistols in my hands continued to spit fire relentlessly. I stood in the middle of the hall, as if I had eyes in the back of my head. Any member of the Berserk War Alliance who dared to charge at me was gunned down. There were already 8 or 9 corpses on the ground. The few surviving mutants were forced to hide behind the walls, too terrified to even peek out. Seeing his subordinates gunned down, Wang Shifu's fury completely erupted. Zhang Hai, who was trying to pin him down, instantly felt the pressure skyrocket as a terrifying force transferred through his arms. A horrifying thought flashed through Zhang Hai's mind. This guy? He's even stronger than Boss Duan. Back when he fought Yang Feng in Subei, Zhang Hai had faced Boss Duan, the strongest physical-type mutant he had ever encountered. But right now, even though he was much stronger than before, Zhang Hai could clearly feel that the pressure coming from Wang Shifu was even more terrifying than that time. The immense power from Wang Shifu's body crushed against his arms, causing the muscles on his own arms to bulge violently. His golden skin seemed to flow with light as the force continued to surge, forcing Zhang Hai's spine to bend and pushing him back step by step. Zhang Hai froze for a second before it dawned on him. Wang Shifu had also mastered a domain. He just hadn't used it until now, and this was him going all out. Wang Shifu roared, clenching his fists before lifting Zhang Hai entirely off the ground and hurling him into the air. Zhang Hai was thrown back, but gritted his teeth and refused to let go, his 10 fingers digging fiercely into his opponent's arms. At that exact moment, Ying appeared from above, her long legs stomping down hard on Wang Shifu's head, while Zero materialized behind him like a phantom. Ying's kick packed enough force to bend a steel pillar, but when it landed on Wang Shifu's head, he didn't even budge. He just bared his teeth in a savage grin and violently swung Zhang Hai, throwing him right at Ying. The two collided violently with a few sickening cracks. Zhang Hai clearly heard his ribs snap, while Ying was smashed hard against the wall, temporarily unable to stand. Even though she specialized in strength, her physique couldn't withstand this 1,000-pound collision. At that moment, Zero's blade plunged into Wang Shifu's back, but it only pierced half a knuckle deep before being stopped by skin as hard as steel. With a casual flick of his arm, Zero was instantly swatted away. Bang! Bang! 2 bullets struck Wang Shifu right in the heart. His body paused for a split second before he looked up at me with a vicious smirk. The spot where the bullets hit was pitch black like metal and deeply dented. He shook his body violently, and the 2 bullets clattered to the ground. He roared and charged straight at me. A flurry of thoughts raced through my mind. The Type 54 pistol has terrifying penetrative power, yet it still couldn't kill him. Either the firepower wasn't enough, or his defense had surpassed normal limits. I immediately retreated rapidly, suppressing the mutants trying to sneak out from behind the walls as I moved. Backing into a corner, I kicked up a shotgun lying on the ground. Its cold muzzle aimed dead center at the charging Wang Shifu. With my activated cranial nerves, I observed the entire battlefield and reacted with pinpoint precision in every split second. I don't believe you're bulletproof. I moved as swiftly as a swimming fish. Wang Shifu had just paused at the sight of the shotgun when a look of sheer terror crossed his face. Before he could even turn to run, a deafening boom echoed. Countless buckshot pellets shredded his body, blasting him over 10 meters away to smash into a wall and slide down. I looked at his body, now riddled with holes like a honeycomb, and said calmly, "Turns out, you're not immortal after all." The hall fell into a deathly silence. The surviving mutants of the Berserk War Alliance lost all their courage, hiding behind the walls and sneaking away. I walked over and used my foot to flip Wang Shifu's corpse over. Up close, I could clearly see his heart was pitch black, dented like a block of metal pressed tightly against his flesh. The Starbucks prompt rang in my head as I pried that black metal block out, confirming it was a mutated plant energy source. An icy chill radiated from it, making me shiver. Now I understood why he wore a thick cloak even in the sweltering heat. I carefully stored the metal block, reloaded my gun, and fired 3 shots in a specific direction. Old Chin, who was keeping his head down and trying to sneak away from the corner, jumped and turned around. He forced a flattering smile, stammering as he begged for mercy. I simply said I was looking for someone named Rin Yunche. Old Chin froze, then looked overjoyed. He claimed she was part of his nephew's faction, hoping to use that status to intimidate us. When I asked who his nephew was, he lifted his chin and smugly declared it was the leader of the Berserk War Alliance, Chang Shinkai. I just gave a dull "oh." The barrel of the shotgun was already in his face. Boom. His body was blown to pieces. I slung the gun over my shoulder. Anyone who tries to play tricks better be ready to die. As for who Chang Shinkai was, I couldn't care less. Regarding Rin Yunche, I knew today's events would definitely reach his ears, but the only person who knew we were looking for her was dead, so he wouldn't be able to trace the connection. I ordered my team to search Old Chin's body, gather all the guns and ammo, and leave. My gaze swept over the crowd outside. The survivors had all fled. In their eyes, I was a lawless god of death. Right then, reinforcements from the Huyang People's Front arrived. Over a dozen mutants surrounded us. A cold voice suddenly echoed in my mind, asking if we dared to kill people here and treat them as if they didn't exist. Zhang Hai, Zero, and the rest of the Stone Shadow Squad all darkened their expressions, because every single one of them heard that voice clearly. Outside, the people from the Huyang People's Front had completely encircled us. Dark gun barrels were raised, their chilling murderous intent aimed straight at me and my teammates. I remained calm, my eyes suddenly darting toward the southwest. The spiritual vision Rin Shiyu shared with me clearly showed that the red dots of light that had been hiding earlier were now blazing brightly from that direction, their spiritual energy spreading all the way here. In my mind, I calmly replied, "Immovable Ming Wang, I've already killed the men. If you feel we've offended you and want to make us stay, then by all means, try." I didn't want to waste breath explaining who struck first. As the master of this place, he definitely knew exactly what happened. If he still wanted to make a move under these circumstances, I absolutely wouldn't just sit back and take it. So what if this was his turf? My base vehicle was parked right outside the gates, and we had guns in our hands. I had my people by my side. If we were staying in this trading zone, whoever came at us would die. A moment later, immovable Ming Wang's authoritative voice rang out, laced with anger, asking if I was threatening him. He said I came to his territory, killed people, caused trouble, and didn't even offer the master of this place an explanation. I coldly replied, "So you're saying you want to side with the Berserk War Alliance?" With a humph, a mental attack aimed to suppress me struck, but it was instantly blocked by Rin Shiyu. Immovable Ming Wang's mental strength was incredibly robust, but Rin Shiyu's spiritual power was like a gentle stream, not sharp, but enough to neutralize it. At the same time, she also transmitted a feeling of indignation. I asked coldly, "Do you want to fight?" At that exact moment, an earth-shattering explosion erupted from the main gate of the Huyang People's Front. Boom! An ear-piercing screech tore through the air. A 5 to 6 meter section of the concrete wall was obliterated by a massive force. Dust billowed into the air, and debris flew everywhere. The guards at the gate turned pale and frantically backed away. Parked right in front of the main gate was a seemingly ordinary minibus. But at some point, a massive V-shaped ramming horn had deployed from its front. Along with it, a cannon gleaming with cold metal extended forward, its barrel aimed dead at the defensive wall. After the cannon fired, sheer terror was plastered across the faces of the Huyang People's Front members. Hearing the explosion, Even I was a little surprised. Ing had secretly returned to the base vehicle earlier, taken control, and just fired a warning shot into the air. A cannon. There's a cannon on that minibus outside the gates. A few survivors at the city gates screamed in panic. They turned and fled inside. The news spread, and the people outside the trading zone all looked toward our surrounded group. One look was enough to understand. That cannon-mounted minibus belonged to this gutsy group of strangers. If they didn't have the skills, how could they dare take on such a tough job? Daring to kill both Wang Shifu and Old Qin meant their strength and guts were far beyond ordinary. In the apocalypse, a cannon was a weapon of mass destruction that everyone feared. Mutants had guns and bombs, but almost no one possessed a cannon. The gazes of the Huyang people's front members surrounding us instantly grew complicated. The psychological pressure from the cannon's sheer destructive power was immense. But immovable Mingwang's prestige and their loyalty to him kept them standing still, waiting for orders. I gave them a passing glance, then casually walked straight through the encirclement, completely ignoring the gun barrels pointed at me, leading my team away. The men immediately stepped back, looking conflicted, because immovable Mingwang still hadn't said a word. That cannon shot just now, combined with my terrifying marksmanship and the corpses scattered across the floor, was enough to terrify them. No one dared to act recklessly. Yang Tianzhao, despite his battered body, stuck close to me. Before leaving, he couldn't take his eyes off the assault rifles on the ground. After a moment of hesitation, he rushed over, scooped up 5 rifles, and hurriedly chased after us. Zhang Hai flashed a cheeky grin at the Huyang people's front members, bent down to strip Old Qin of his clothes, rummaged out an animal skin bag, and casually followed behind Zero. He treated the crowd like thin air the entire time, leaving them pale with anger. Zhang Jiming watched our retreating backs, a sense of unease rising in his chest. Are we really just letting them go like this? Where does that leave the pride of the Huyang people's front? It wasn't just him. The others were also starting to feel indignant, thinking this group of strangers was way too arrogant. Right at that moment, an authoritative voice echoed in their minds. Let them go. Zhang Jiming indignantly asked in his mind. They destroyed our wall, and we're still letting them go. That question echoed the thoughts of many. All eyes turned toward the southwest corner, where a dark, luxurious room was located. Inside that room, a large, bald man sat on a mahogany chair, his face contorted with rage. Smash! He shattered an antique blue and white porcelain teapot, splashing tea everywhere, and roared. You're asking why? You bunch of idiots. Wang Shifu and his crew are dead. What do we gain by siding with them? Not to mention, they have a strong mental-type mutant with them. I can't control all of them at once. If we clash, even if we win, we'll suffer heavy losses. They slaughtered Wang Shifu as easily as killing a chicken, and they have a damn cannon. I absolutely refuse to take such a losing deal. Immovable Mingwang muttered in his fury, my face flashing in his mind with a mocking smile. Humph. But you won't live much longer either. Killing Old Qin and Wang Shifu means you've made a mortal enemy out of Chang Shenkai. As long as you're in Banju City, you'll face the relentless pursuit of the Berserk War Alliance. And Chang Shenkai is a venomous snake. Once he bites, he never lets go. Get in the car. Hurry. I had barely finished speaking when Ing immediately started the minibus. Yang Tianzhao, clutching the assault rifles tightly, jumped into an off-road vehicle trailing behind. It wasn't clear which squad it belonged to, but since it was convenient, we took it. Zhang Hai hopped in with him. Bang! The minibus slammed into gear, tires screeching against the ground. Dust billowed as the engine roared, and the vehicle tore out of the Changyang district like a tornado, speeding off into the distance. Once we were far enough away, Yang Tianzhao completely relaxed and yelled in excitement about how we managed to kill Wang Shifu. Old Qin was also shot dead by me. At first, he thought he was a dead man walking and worried about dragging everyone down. But who knew the outcome would be this satisfying? Since the apocalypse began, he had lived a life of exploitation and threats. Even trading minerals required bowing and scraping because minerals weren't as precious as food. Even as a mutant, he was barely treated better than a dog. He had swallowed enough grievances. He never expected that following me today would let him slaughter his way through everything. This was the first time he had ever tasted such a thrill. Zhang Hai chuckled. He was already used to following me and slaughtering everything in our path. Seeing Yang Tianzhao so overly excited, he just gave him a side eye. What a rookie. Yang Tianzhao still couldn't contain himself, bragging about all the guns he picked up. The value of guns went without saying. With a gun, even an ordinary person could fight off a mutant. Hunting mutated beasts or dealing with zombies became much easier. A single gun was worth more than a human life. He excitedly asked if, with all these guns, my squad now had 8 or 9 of them. Zhang Hai scratched his nose, seriously counted, and replied, about 20. We still have a bunch we haven't even used. Yang Tianzhao was speechless. 20 guns, and you can't even use them all. Right then, Zhang Hai cursed loudly, telling him to watch the road and stop staring at him, prompting Yang Tianzhao to hastily apologize. The minibus quickly reached a parking lot and temporarily pulled over. Zhang Hai jumped out and handed me the animal skin bag. Old Qin had some decent stash, 3 level 1 mutated crystal cores and a map. Looking at the 3 crystal cores, I was pretty happy. I had used up all my crystal cores when leaving Changwu County, so getting 3 level 1 cores back was a relief. Though thinking about how I was rejoicing over a few crystal cores like I was back at square one was kind of funny. Mutated crystal cores had too many uses now, from the base vehicle's evolution projects to the energy lab. 1 level 1 crystal core could create 1 evolution crystal, all thanks to the base vehicle's optimized lab. If it were the military or the government, it would take at least 2 crystal cores and 3,000 pounds of mutated meat to make 1. The base vehicle really was a crystal core-guzzling monster. I opened the map to take a look, but didn't recognize the area. I just knew that since old Qin kept it with his crystal cores, it had to be valuable, so I handed it to Yang Tianzhao to check. He took a look and realized it was a map of the restricted zone, the old city center. It clearly marked Chaoyang Road and Chuntian Road, while the black dots with skulls indicated danger zones. The tree symbols only appeared in 3 spots scattered across the restricted zone, one near the Berserk War Alliance's defensive wall and one near the Luoxing Society's base. But he didn't fully understand it either. I told him it was fine, we'd study it later, and put it away. Yang Tianzhao finally asked anxiously, after pulling a stunt like that, we've completely offended the Berserk War Alliance. They'll definitely hunt us down. Where do we go next? I said in a deep voice. I know a secret passage that leads straight inside the Berserk War Alliance. For now, we'll take that route. After killing Wang Shifu and old Qin, I fully understood the consequences, but I had no intention of facing them head-on. My goal was still to help Rin Xiu find her sister, Rin Yunche. From the mouth of Shang Qiangjuan, the dead wanted man, I had learned of a shortcut into the Berserk War Alliance. It was the very escape route he found when he was completely surrounded. Now, it had become a path I could exploit. I never expected Shang Qiangjuan to actually be useful for once. I suddenly looked up toward the driver's cabin of the minibus. Ying was sitting quietly in her seat. As the manager of the base vehicle, unless there were special circumstances or I gave a direct order, Ying would always follow the principle of protection and driving, absolutely never leaving her post without permission. She was heavily injured and needed treatment. I stepped onto the base vehicle and walked straight to Ying's side, my voice dropping low. Thanks to the Starbug's existence, I could clearly sense her physical condition right now. Ying's chest had several broken ribs, the pain dull but agonizing. Those injuries were all from when she desperately shielded me during the clash with Wang Shifu. Despite her injuries, Ying still managed to drive the minibus back to pick everyone up and then continued driving the base vehicle all the way here. When I stepped onto the vehicle, she was drenched in cold sweat from the pain, but from start to finish, Ying hadn't uttered a single complaint. She just quietly completed her mission, driving the vehicle from the Huyang people's front all the way here. Yusin, Ying has a few broken ribs. Help treat her. I looked over at Li Yusin, who was currently taking care of Jiang Zhuiying. She paused for a moment before immediately stepping over to Ying. When she placed her hands on Ying and used her medical ability to check, Yusin shuddered slightly. Ying's condition might have just been a few broken ribs, but it was incredibly dangerous. One of the bones had fractured at an angle and was dangerously close to piercing her lung. If it actually punctured it, Even with Yusin's healing abilities, it would be very hard to save her. She couldn't help but secretly admire her. To endure such a long drive with an injury like that. Such iron-willed resilience was truly rare to see in a woman. Without another word, Yusin carefully began using her ability to mend the broken ribs near Ying's lungs. Seeing that, I finally felt relieved. Brother Jiang, take this. Yang Tianzhao stood at the door of the minibus, holding a gun bag with both hands. Inside were 6 freshly cleaned guns. He offered them to me with an obvious look of flattery. I picked one up to inspect it and found that the crucial parts had even been carefully greased. Even without specialized gun oil, managing to do this in the current circumstances was very rare. In the wars of the past, people used machine oil, pine oil, or even sesame oil to clean their guns. And the situation now was far worse than wartime. Take this one. I casually grabbed a Type 56 automatic rifle and tossed it straight to Yang Tianzhao. He hurriedly caught it, stunned for a moment before a look of unconcealed excitement spread across his face. It was a Type 56 automatic rifle. Before the apocalypse, this type of gun looked pretty crude, but it was essentially a clone of the AK-47. Its firepower was leagues above a pistol. Despite craving it, Yang Tianzhao gritted his teeth and shook his head. Brother Jiang, something this valuable. I can't accept it. Today, my team and I had saved his life during the conflict with the Berserk War Alliance. He felt guilty about that and didn't dare take the rifle. Just take it. We don't need it. Besides, we got the information on Ren Yunshe. Consider this your reward. I said calmly. This Type 56 was already an old gun. With the Stone Shadow Squad's current arsenal of over 20 firearms, it wasn't that important anymore. Moreover, I had extracted news about Ren Yunshe from Old Qin today, and Yang Tianzhao had contributed by guiding us. Rewarding him a little was only fair. In the coming days, I still needed him to lead the way. He'd only work hard if there were benefits. More importantly, when facing death today, Yang Tianzhao hadn't betrayed us. Otherwise, he wouldn't be standing here right now. Thank you, Brother Jiang. In the end, Yang Tianzhao didn't refuse anymore, hugging the Type 56 rifle tightly to his chest. To him and the mining camp, this gun held immense value. For an ordinary person with almost nothing to their name, a gun was a second life. In the urban district of Banju, the high-rise buildings still stood tall, but after the apocalypse, vegetation had grown wildly out of control. Skyscrapers were covered in thick vines and nameless plants, turning everything into a sea of green. The sycamore trees along the streets had grown dozens of meters tall, their massive branches piercing right through the glass windows of the buildings. The scene looked like a regression to the dinosaur age, where every creature was gigantic. Even the dragonflies were over a meter long, and the plants towered into the sky. On some streets, around large supermarkets and underground parking lots, fierce battles were still raging. The ground was torn up, forming deep craters, with zombie and human corpses scattered everywhere. The headquarters of the Berserk War Alliance. The sun was blazing outside, but the dense vines covering the exterior blocked out most of the light, making the place suffocatingly gloomy. Occasional loud explosions echoed from outside, but inside the hall, it was eerily silent. Both sides of the luxurious mahogany square table were packed with people. Only the seat on the right remained empty. The man sitting at the head of the table had a dark, brooding expression. This was the leader of the Berserk War Alliance, Chang Shenkai. He had a rather handsome face, but his blood-red eyes exuded a chilling, murderous aura even when he didn't speak, making people afraid to look him in the eye. The rest were district heads and high-ranking members of the Berserk War Alliance. They looked at Chang Shenkai with deep unease. Everyone understood that his silence meant his fury was tightly suppressed. Do none of you have anything to say to me? Wang Shifu and my own uncle are dead. I heard they were slaughtered by a bunch of strangers as easily as killing chickens. Do you really have nothing to say? Finally, Chang Shenkai spoke. His sharp gaze and deep voice slowly swept across every face. His right index finger tapped rhythmically on the mahogany table. Every tap felt like it was striking directly at their hearts, making the atmosphere in the hall heavy to the point of suffocation. We must kill them. A middle-aged district head finally couldn't handle the pressure. He slammed his hand on the large table in front of him, his voice filled with rage. Wang Shifu and your uncle being killed is a direct slap to the face of our Berserk War Alliance. They clearly look down on us. The other factions in Banju City are definitely laughing at us right now. So we must find that arrogant group of strangers and wipe them out. Kill them to make an example. Yes, not just kill them, but torture them ruthlessly. We have to torment them to death to make the other factions in Banju feel the terror of the Berserk War Alliance once again. I support the proposal of the District 5 head. I suggest our District 4 takes charge of tracking down those strangers. The district heads spoke up one after another. Their voices were filled with indignation and an eagerness to prove their loyalty to Chang Shankai. Chang Shankai narrowed his eyes, his expression still dark, showing no reaction to any of the proposals. He didn't like being called boss or big brother. The title he wanted to hear was my lord. Finally, his gaze landed on the young man sitting in the first seat on his left, a man with only one eye, wearing a baseball cap. Poison Master, what do you think? The one-eyed man called Poison Master was the head of District 1 in the Berserk War Alliance. From the very beginning, he hadn't said a single word. My lord, not long ago, I led the men of District 1 into battle against the Luoxing Society near the restricted zone on Chengfu Road. We are currently on the verge of capturing that road. I only found out about the deaths of Wang Shifu and your uncle when I received your summons. I deeply regret what happened, but in my opinion, we need to stay calm right now. As long as we focus all our forces on taking Chengfu Road, we will completely control the flora there, allowing us to harvest more active biological metal. That is the most important matter at hand. Poison Master spoke very slowly, every word measured and deliberate. He was the earliest follower of Chang Shankai and the one who best understood the hidden meaning behind his anger. Chang Shankai was never one to easily show his emotions. If he acted furious, it was mostly a performance for others. The death of Wang Shifu or his own uncle wasn't as important to Chang Shankai as losing face. What you say makes sense, Chang Shankai said in a deep voice. He paused for a moment before continuing, every word heavy. But today, my own uncle and my trusted subordinate, Wang Shifu, were both killed. No matter who it is, I must find them and kill them. The other district heads exchanged glances, their eyes showing clear schadenfreude toward Poison Master. Obviously, his proposal hadn't pleased Chang Shankai. Poison Master said no more, slowly shifting his gaze to the woman sitting opposite Chang Shankai. The woman wore a long white dress and matching lace gloves. She had a beautiful face and a gentle aura that easily evoked pity, but not a single district head dared to underestimate her. Chang Shankai's gaze also landed on her, a flash of unconcealed lust appearing in his eyes for a split second. She coughed lightly, her gloved hand covering her slender nose. Lord Chang, I think the district head's suggestions are all very good. Her voice was soft and slow like flowing water, incredibly pleasant to the ear, but they are not comprehensive enough. Go on. Chang Shankai's eyes lit up as he stared at her intently. The deaths of Wang Shifu and your uncle must be avenged. Otherwise, the other factions will look down on us. Those who are already dissatisfied might even take the opportunity to cause trouble, affecting our war with the Luoxing Society. Therefore, not only must we take revenge, but we must do it swiftly and brutally. However, I don't recommend using our own forces. Right now, we need to focus all our energy on capturing Chengfu Road and the path into the restricted zone. The active biological metal there is the foundation for our future expansion. She paused for a moment before continuing. We can hire an elite squad from another faction. For example, the Phantom Poison Squad, famous for tracking and assassination. At the same time, we can pressure immovable Ming Wang into renting us his mutated dog. Our people died on his territory, yet he let those strangers walk away. That's no different from looking down on the Berserk War Alliance. As long as my lord steps forward to rent that dog for a few days and coordinates with the Phantom Poison Squad, we will definitely catch that group. The entire hall fell into absolute silence. Then, a smile bloomed on Chang Shankai's gloomy face. He looked at the woman in the white dress with deep admiration. Excellent. Yunshe, you are as thorough as always. We'll do exactly as you say. Haha, I'll go settle the score with immovable Mingwang shortly. The woman smiled and lowered her eyes. To assist a hero like my lord, is Rin Yunche's honor. The other district heads said nothing more, their gazes toward Rin Yunche incredibly complex. They all knew very well that this seemingly fragile woman was trusted by Chang Shunkai far more than they were. Her proposals were always airtight, her foresight far beyond ordinary people. It was because she stood behind him that Chang Shunkai had risen step by step, leading the Berserk War Alliance to surpass the Luoxing Society and become the strongest faction in Banju. Everyone knew that when Rin Yunche was first captured, they all thought the little princess of the former Rin Corporation would just become a plaything. But through her intellect and capability, she had earned Chang Shinkai's respect. He had never forced her to do anything. Even so, everyone silently assumed she was already Chang Shinkai's woman. No one dared to harbor any thoughts about her. Lord Chang, we must act quickly. I advise you to set out immediately to meet immovable Mingwang. In this city, no one has a tracking ability that surpasses his mutated dog. I'll go right now. Those bastards who dared to kill Wang Shifu. I'll crush them to pieces. Chang Shunkai said coldly, grabbing his cloak from the back of his chair and standing up. The other district heads also grabbed their coats and left one by one. Poison Master was the last to slowly stand up. Just as he reached the door, Ren Yunche's voice rang out from behind him. District Head Poison Master, I recall Wang Shifu had a piece of active metal. I will retrieve it. Poison Master nodded, glancing at Ren Yunche's gentle silhouette as she walked away. In the Berserk War Alliance, she was like a solitary orchid, blooming quietly yet commanding absolute respect. After a brief rest, the base vehicle quickly left the city, leaving the high-rise buildings to gradually fade from sight. Along the way, we didn't encounter any pursuit or blockades. I guess the Berserk War Alliance hadn't had time to react yet. I leaned back in the driver's seat, my hand unconsciously touching the freezing metal block. When touched carefully, this metal felt smooth and soft, like melting rubber. The dent from the bullet had completely healed, leaving no trace behind. Not only that, but when my finger lingered on it, the metal started clinging tightly to my skin, as if countless invisible thin membranes were wrapping around it, slowly merging with my flesh. Starbug, this metal block, I commanded in my mind. Even though we were still a distance away from the entrance to the Berserk War Alliance's secret passage, I decided to use the time to study this mysterious metal. Ding. Scanning in progress. Ding. Scan complete. A dense panel of information instantly popped up in my mind. Mutated plant metal, secreted from plant cells after genetic mutation. Structure lies between metal and plant. Analyzing mutated plant gene model. Base vehicle level insufficient. Cannot analyze. Mutated plant genes. Even though it couldn't analyze it deeply, I was still very satisfied. I finally had the answer I needed. After the apocalypse, animals mutated into beasts, and humans became zombies or mutants, all caused by the virus triggering genetic mutations. But mutated plant genes? This was the first time I had seen proof of it with my own eyes. The wild overgrowth of trees had already made me suspicious, and this active plant metal completely confirmed my theory. Even plants had been affected and were exhibiting mutated traits. The metal was cold to the touch, self-healing, offered a certain level of bullet resistance, and automatically adhered to the skin without causing discomfort. I absolutely had to get my hands on the plant that secreted this active metal. The more I stroked the metal block, the stronger my desire to possess it became. Not just to activate the mutated plant lab project in the base vehicle, but because if I had this plant source, I could cultivate and harvest active metal in bulk. Just a small piece stuck over his heart allowed Wang Shifu to tank 2 shots from my pistol. The value of this metal was unquestionable. It was far superior to body armor, and even if damaged, it could heal itself. Right then, I heard the sound of rushing water. Looking up, I realized the base vehicle had arrived beside a large river. Both banks were overgrown with dense reeds, and looking out, all I could see was an endless expanse of green. Not far away was a collapsed mountain, the landslide burying a section of the river. Soon after, the other off-road vehicle pulled up behind the base vehicle. Yang Tianzhao, Zhang Hai, and Sun Kuan jumped out one after another. Brother Jiang, where's this secret passage you mentioned? From what I remember, there aren't any hidden routes into the city around here. Yang Tianzhao looked at me in confusion. He was very familiar with Banju's terrain. But in his memory, there was no hidden path leading into the city near this river. You can't see it, but the secret passage is right under our feet, I explained calmly through the car window. Before the apocalypse, Banju City planned to build a subway line, but the zombie outbreak happened before it was finished, so the project was abandoned. This route can still lead straight into the city. The reason I knew about this secret passage was all thanks to Shang Qiangjuan. Before the apocalypse, he worked for the subway company in Banju. While ordinary people wouldn't even think of it, he was more familiar with it than anyone else. But I don't see the entrance to the construction site. Could it have been buried by the landslide? Yang Tianzhao scratched his head, looking at the ground anxiously. If I had detection equipment, I could find it, but we'd have to use explosives and it would take time. I didn't answer, just turned to look at Ren Shiyu sitting in the car. Shiyu, scan the underground area here and see if there are any mental fluctuations. I remembered Shang Qiangjuan mentioning that when he escaped through this passage, he ran into subway workers who had turned into zombies. And the exit he had blown open with detonators might have been buried again by the prolonged heavy rains. Ren Shiyu nodded and immediately shared her spiritual vision with me. Under her scan, I quickly spotted a few faint spiritual light dots a few meters underground beneath the base vehicle. There were about 3 or 4 weak red dots. Sure enough, there were zombies. Tianzhao here, and here. Set the explosives. Use your mountain blasting method to blow a path straight down. I jumped out of the car and pointed at 3 spots forming a triangle based on Shiyu's scan results. No problem, Brother Jiang. Just watch me. Yang Tianzhao nodded excitedly. Rewarding him with a gun had clearly boosted his morale. Not long after, a series of deafening explosions echoed from the riverbank. Earth and rocks were blasted into the air, revealing a massive hole underneath. A wave of musty, rotting air instantly wafted out. Goo, goo. The moment the entrance was blown open, a few zombies growled and lunged out. 6 hours later, the night was like thick ink, slowly swallowing the entire landscape. Are we going the right way? We've been chasing for so long. This stupid dog better not be leading us astray. This is heading toward the Balong River. There was a landslide around here recently. Are they planning to dive into the river to hide? The Huyang militia clearly said they fled in a minibus and an off-road vehicle. In the darkness by the river, 5 silhouettes quietly appeared, led by a massive, panting shadow. Among them, a skinny young man stood at the front, carrying a giant, blood-stained scythe on his back, clearly a custom weapon. He carried a large canvas bag over his shoulder. His appearance was silent and utterly bizarre because he had 4 arms. If anyone from Banju saw him, they would immediately recognize him and feel a chill in their hearts. That was Yu Peng, the captain of the most notorious elite survival squad in Banju, the Phantom Poison Squad. Standing next to Yu Peng was a fat man, constantly chewing on something, grease dripping from the corners of his mouth. He was the one who had just complained. It's not wrong. I smell blood and explosives. Beside the fat man was a tall, lanky guy with a completely metallic skull. His nose twitched constantly in the air, and his cold eyes were even more terrifying than a zombie's. They're right up ahead. Brother Dog is useless. He's even worse than this stupid mutated dog. This whole way, the dog has been leading us. You only catch the scent in bits and pieces. But this dog looks delicious. It's been a while since I had fresh mutated meat. Sharp voices rang out simultaneously from twin girls. The two had a sinister aura, their movements almost identical. They both wore tight red outfits, with metal studs piercing their noses, ears, and lips. As they spoke, their eyes greedily darted toward the massive black shadow crouching in front of the Phantom Poison Squad. The guy called Brother Dog shot the sisters a look of disgust, but didn't reply. Right then, the black shadow suddenly turned its head, bearing 2 rows of stark white fangs. A low growl rumbled from its throat as green drool dripped onto the ground. The twin sisters instantly paled and took a few steps back in unison. This mutated dog was as massive as a hippo, with a giant horn growing out of its forehead. Its explosive power in close combat was so terrifying that even the 2 of them didn't dare truly provoke it. Yupeng suddenly made a bizarre hissing sound. Hearing it, the mutated dog immediately lowered its head, trembling all over. Xiao Shuang, De Shuang, don't provoke it. Even though immovable Ming Wang used his mental power to control it and plant a temporary suggestion, it's still a bloodthirsty mutated dog at its core. Be careful, Yupeng warned coldly. The sisters lowered their heads in silence, a flash of anger in their eyes. We took this mission from the Berserk War Alliance. You all know what the consequences of failure will be. Hearing that, the two shuddered slightly, their aggression quickly fading. We understand. Right then, the mutated dog let out a low growl and charged straight toward the river. Follow it. It definitely found their trail. Yu Peng ordered softly before immediately giving chase. The others quickly followed suit. Found it. A massive crater that was just blown open. There are zombie corpses. Under the landslide is a large tunnel. The stupid dog already jumped down. I smell that miner's scent. They're definitely down there. Inside the abandoned subway tunnel, the darkness was as thick as ink, and the air was stagnant with a musty, rotting stench. On both sides were dilapidated billboards, the empty aluminum frames covered in cobwebs and mysterious stains. A minibus with its headlights on slowly drove in, the beams sweeping across the pale gray concrete walls. Even veteran drivers from before the apocalypse would marvel at this driving skill. With concrete pillars on one side and the tracks on the other, a single mistake meant falling right off. But in Ying's hands, who had now fully recovered, the minibus was as nimble as an extension of her own arm, constantly maintaining a mere 15-centimeter distance from the tracks. The front of the vehicle was plastered with the crushed remains of zombies. Along the way, we continuously faced small waves of zombie attacks, but the vehicle's armor was tough enough, and from the small combat cabin, I quickly gunned down any obstacles. In the off-road vehicle behind us, Zhang Hai and the others were so tense they were holding their breath. This was their first time venturing so deep into such a dark, suffocating place. The winding tunnel stretched on. We traveled for several hours, stopping multiple times to scout ahead. Infiltrating the Berserk War Alliance's territory at night would reduce the risk of being discovered. Finally, I saw the desolate terminal station up ahead. The minibus came to a halt. We were only a few hundred meters away from the terminal station. We had officially entered the Berserk War Alliance's territory. Let's rest here for a bit. I stepped out of the vehicle and told Yang Tianzhao and the others. Eat something. We hadn't expended much physical energy, but our minds and muscles had been tense for too long. We were about to infiltrate deeper, so we needed to be in peak combat condition. I handed out mutated meat to Zhang Hai and the rest. Without any evolution crystals left, we could only rely on food to maintain our strength. After eating, I returned to the minibus and sat next to Rin Shiyu. Shiyu, we're about to see your sister. I don't know what's going to happen. Can you handle it? Now that we were in the Berserk War Alliance's territory, her mental reconnaissance abilities were more crucial than ever. I'm fine, she nodded, then suddenly smiled at me. Brother Jiang, thank you. We're teammates. You don't need to say that. I cut her off. A strange light flickered in her gray eyes. She seemed to recall the moment I carried her across the mountains, how leaning against my back had made her feel incredibly safe. Brother Jiang. Suddenly, Shiyu's expression shifted slightly. Someone's coming. Through the spiritual vision Shiyu shared, I saw a few dots of spiritual light rapidly approaching from a distance. 5 mutants, and the one leading them, had a mental signature that felt very much like a mutated beast or a zombie. This made me think. A human's spiritual light was completely different from that of a zombie or a mutated beast. Yet, a creature like that was traveling with mutants? That was truly hard to believe. Moreover, only Shang Qiangyuan and I knew about the entrance to this subway tunnel. So why did they show up right at this moment? Whether they were tracking us using a mutated beast or directly hunting us down, I decided to observe a bit more before making a move. Shiyu immediately relayed the situation to the entire Stone Shadow squad, including Yang Tianzhao. Zhang Hai and Sun Kuan finished their mutated meat, wiped their mouths, and grabbed their assault rifles alongside Tianzhao, taking cover behind the off-road vehicle. In a dark corner of the abandoned subway tunnel, the Phantom Poison squad blended into the shadows beside the gray concrete pillars, absolutely silent. The mutated dog also crouched on the tracks, not making a single sound. 1 minibus, 1 off-road vehicle. 3 people ambushing behind the off-road vehicle. They must have spotted us. The metal plating on that minibus is weird. It even blocks infrared vision. I can't see what's inside. There's also a girl, probably a mutation type, hiding near the tracks next to the minibus. She's strong. Within the Phantom Poison squad, the skinny guy that De Shuang and Xiao Shuang called Brother Dog was holding a torn, blood-stained piece of cloth to his nose. It was a piece of Yang Tianzhao's shirt, torn during a previous trade and given to them by the Berserk War Alliance. Relying on this and the mutated dog, they had tracked us all the way here. A red glint flashed in Brother Dog's eyes. Even though the tunnel was pitch black, in his vision, the three people hiding behind the off-road vehicle stood out clearly like heat signatures. Finding this abandoned subway tunnel isn't bad. But this place is our hunting ground, Yu Peng smiled ruthlessly. The darkness and enclosed space were absolute paradise for the Phantom Poison squad. Captain, we have to have some real fun today. The twin sisters in red licked their lips and chuckled. We'll go first. With that, they reached up and grabbed the concrete ceiling. Thick white threads stuck fast, pulling them up as they swung toward the off-road vehicle. Go, Yu Peng ordered in a low voice. At that exact moment, the taillights of the minibus and the headlights of the off-road vehicle flared to life simultaneously, the blinding light tearing through the darkness. The figures of the Phantom Poison squad were instantly exposed. Their reaction was faster than they anticipated, but considering we had taken down Wang Shifu's group, Yu Peng wasn't too surprised. Fire! Zhang Hai was the first to pull the trigger of his Type 95 assault rifle. The Phantom Poison squad reacted with extreme speed. The moment the gunshot rang out, all three of them, including the fat man, rolled and leaped down onto the tracks. The spot where they had just been standing was riddled with bullets, sending gravel flying. From the off-road vehicle down to the tracks, a concrete wall blocked the line of sight, creating a blind spot. Just as Zhang Hai shifted his stance, a white thread as thick as a finger suddenly dropped from above, sticking to his gun and yanking hard. He looked up to see the two women in red clinging to the concrete ceiling, moving as lightly as the wind. One of them was controlling the thread, trying to snatch the gun from his hands. Right then, a figure shot up from the tracks below like a bolt of lightning, leaping 5 or 6 meters high, almost touching the tunnel ceiling. Mid-air, a blood-stained scythe was swung out, its handle connected to an arm by an iron chain. The attacker had 4 arms. It was Yu Peng. The crescent scythe drew a cold arc through the air, hooking around the back of Zhang Hai's head and slashing down. Die? Yu Peng sneered coldly. The strike was incredibly fast, the angle vicious. By the time Zhang Hai realized it, the blade was less than a meter from his head. In that life-or-death moment, Zhang Hai roared, forced to drop his gun. His 10 fingers flashed with a metallic gleam, turning as hard as steel. He clamped his hands tightly around the Grim Reaper's scythe, but under the terrifying force, the blade still pressed down a few centimeters, slicing deep into his palms and sending blood spraying. Zhang Hai's entire body went cold, sweat pouring down like rain. That block was the absolute fastest reaction Zhang Hai could muster after all his days of training. The blade had enough force to cleave through thick steel, yet he managed to catch it. But his 10 fingers were completely numb, feeling as if they were about to be severed from his body. That's the Phantom Poison squad. Yang Tianzhao saw the 4-armed Yu Peng and the twin sisters in red clinging to the ceiling. Chilling rumors instantly flooded his mind. They had run into the Phantom Poison squad, the most notorious elite hunting and assassination team in Banju City, a mercenary group famous for their terrifying strength and flawless track record. Everyone get back. Right then, a loud shout echoed from the tracks, and Yu Peng immediately retreated. The moment he backed away, the sound of liquid spraying hissed from behind. A shower of viscous, semi-transparent liquid rained down on the off-road vehicle and the minibus. Zhang Hai, lying on the ground, couldn't dodge in time. A few drops splattered on his face. The foul stench and sticky texture made his stomach churn. Grease. The thought flashed through his mind, and he instantly knew something was wrong. Yang Tianzhao had it even worse, covered head to toe in the liquid. Both vehicles were completely drenched as well. Get away. Shiyu's warning rang simultaneously in Zhang Hai and Yang Tianzhao's minds. A split second later, a tiny spark fell onto the puddle of liquid. Boom. Flames erupted violently in the blink of an eye. The terrifying heat caused the off-road vehicle's tires to explode, followed by a massive blast from the fuel tank. The entire vehicle was swallowed by a sea of fire. Captain, I didn't mean to. The fat man climbed up the wall, looking at the flames and giggling. Once my explosive grease catches fire, the results are always spectacular. Even if it only burns for 3 seconds, that off-road vehicle and minibus are done for. Just wait for the fire to die down, and we can collect the bodies. Yupeng smiled knowingly and nodded. They were definitely formidable opponents to kill Wang Shifu, but unfortunately, they picked the wrong place. In a narrow space like this, there's no dodging your attack. Wait, why is the minibus completely fine? Brother Dog's eyes widened as he pointed at the minibus, which remained completely unscathed amidst the sea of fire. Everyone turned to look. As the flames died down, the minibus stood there perfectly intact, its windows and tires showing almost no damage. Damn it, this vehicle is a treasure. The fat man's eyes went wide, clapping his hands in excitement, his gaze filled with blatant greed. Right then, a low hum echoed from the front of the minibus. From beneath the hood, a dark metal pipe as thick as a child's arm slowly extended. What's that? The fat man froze. The mutated dog lying on the tracks suddenly leaped onto the opposite platform. Brother Dog took a few deep sniffs, his face instantly draining of color as he stared dead at the metal pipe. It's gasoline. Run. With his abnormally sharp sense of smell and sight, he instantly guessed what was about to happen and turned to flee. Damn it. Yupeng realized it was a flamethrower nozzle. Reacting in a split second of life and death, he swung his forearms, hurling his scythe at the concrete wall and yanking the chain hard to launch himself into the air. But right at that moment, a deafening roar echoed, and a massive torrent of fire blasted out. His airborne body was swallowed by the flames, turning into a fireball before plummeting to the ground, burning to a crisp. The fat man suffered an even worse fate. His highly flammable, grease-filled body caused him to explode like a firework the moment the flames hit him, the brilliant blast tearing through the darkness. Even though Brother Dog had run first, the fire from the minibus's flamethrower was too intense in the confined space. Unable to escape, he was burned alive in agony, thrashing around before finally dying. What they had considered a terrain advantage had become their grave. On the concrete ceiling above the tracks, De Shuang and Xiao Shuang felt like they had plunged into hell. In just a few moments, Brother Dog, the fat man, and Captain Yupeng had vanished into a sea of fire. They were the legendary Phantom Poison Squad. What the hell was this minibus? It even had a flamethrower. A barrage of questions overwhelmed the twin sisters with despair. They clung tightly to their white threads on the ceiling, not daring to move a muscle. Below them, a burly man leaned back, aiming a shotgun straight up at them. At the same time, a young girl with cat ears, holding a dagger, appeared like a phantom right beneath them. Her cold gaze looked up, radiating a murderous intent that made the sisters instantly realize. This was someone who had survived countless bloody battles. We surrender. Please don't kill us. The two trembled as they begged, staring in panic at the gun barrel pointed at them. Right then, a miserable howl echoed from a distance. The mutated dog that had run away earlier stumbled out from a corner, its eyes filled with terror. It approached to within 10 meters of the minibus before collapsing. A gunshot rang out in the quiet space. The bullet pierced its heart, and the mutated dog slumped down with a massive hole in its chest. Witnessing this, De Shuang and Xiao Shuang grew even more terrified. They clearly felt an invisible force compelling the dog to return and accept its death. That power. Could there be a mental-type mutant in the enemy squad? Thinking of this, the two felt ridiculous for planning to torture the people in the minibus just moments ago. They had overestimated themselves, yet still vastly underestimated their opponents. Inside the vehicle, I had just stepped out of the combat cabin, still holding the sniper rifle. I looked at Shiyu, my gaze sharper than usual. Shiyu, your mental power has grown stronger again. Congratulations. Shiyu blushed slightly. Yes, a little bit. I'm trying to master my mental domain. That mutated dog was already controlled by immovable Ming Wang's mental power, so its will to resist was very weak. That's why I was able to temporarily control it. Being praised so directly by me made her a bit shy, explaining as she spoke. Then her expression turned serious, pointing at the tunnel ceiling. But Brother Jiang, you have to be careful. I can sense there are still people up there. Yeah, I know, I nodded, shifting my gaze to the twin sisters who were currently pinned down. Shiyu, let me handle those two first. Let's see if we can squeeze any useful information out of them. De Shuang and Xiao Shuang were now obediently lying face down on the ground. Sun Kuan had his shotgun aimed at them. Neither dared to move, looking at me with terrified eyes. They had realized I was the captain. Young, yet able to command such a squad, and having just fired the fatal shot that killed the mutated dog with terrifying precision. He was clearly no ordinary person. I was lacking information on the Berserk War Alliance, and Yang Tianzhao was just a young miner with very limited knowledge. If I wanted to find Ren Yunshe in the Berserk War Alliance's territory, the more information I had, the lower the risk. Captain, what do we do with these two? Kill them? Sun Kuan asked, his voice dripping with killing intent. Hearing that, De Shuang and Xiao Shuang trembled violently. We're mutants. We're definitely useful. Please don't kill us. We can join you. Our spider silk ability can adapt to any terrain. De Shuang pleaded frantically. In this chaotic world, mutants were valuable resources everywhere. Surrendering and being recruited after a battle wasn't uncommon. No need. I shook my head decisively. Their abilities held absolutely no value to me. The sisters exchanged a glance, their expressions shifting to pure flattery. They lowered their posture, twisting their bodies alluringly. Captain, we're twins. Every night, Yupeng couldn't bear to leave us. Do you want to try? Just once, and we guarantee you'll never forget it. They stepped closer, their eyes burning with heat. After several genetic modifications, my appearance was indeed quite good, and I carried an air of mystery. Compared to Yupeng, I was leagues above him, so they naturally found me very appealing. I frowned, feeling like 3 black lines had just dropped over my forehead. A honey trap? Too crude. I leaned aside, letting the two of them lunge at empty air. My eyes showed clear disgust, completely unconcealed. You really thought a honey trap would work on our brother Jiang? Haha, every girl in our vehicle is way prettier than you two. Sun Kuan stood nearby, sneering. He wasn't wrong. Shiyu, Yusin, every one of them was a stunning beauty. De Shuang and Xiao Shuang froze, their disappointment obvious. To them, their bodies were their greatest asset. Having it dismissed like this was a heavy blow to their pride. Enough, I spoke up. Tell me everything you know about the Berserk War Alliance. We know. The sisters immediately rejoiced, scrambling to speak, hiding almost nothing. Compared to Yang Tianzhao, they were well-known survivors who frequently traded and took missions from the Berserk War Alliance, so they understood the inner workings much better. I listened carefully, memorizing every detail. After my brain was enhanced, my memory was practically flawless. Hearing it once was enough. Only when they had talked until their mouths were dry did I raise a hand to signal them to stop. In my mind, their information merged with what Yang Tianzhao had provided, and the picture of the Berserk War Alliance gradually became clear. Aside from fighting the Luoxing Society for territory and looting supermarkets, gas stations, and resources, this organization wasn't much different from the Huyang People's Front. Because the war consumed massive amounts of supplies, they highly welcomed mutants coming to trade. Their management was loose, even wanted criminals from other places could hide and live there. In that place, strength and money were the only rules. Do you know someone named Ren Yunshe? I asked suddenly. The sisters thought for a moment, then shook their heads. No, we only know a few trading zones. We aren't familiar with the high-ranking inner circle. I was quite disappointed. It seemed I still had to find her myself. Right then, Sun Kuan raised the butt of his gun and smashed it hard into the back of their necks. Both of them groaned and collapsed unconscious. Brother Jiang, what do we do now? Zhang Hai and Yang Tianzhao had been treated by Yusin, their faces wrapped in bandages from the burns. Seeing that sight, I couldn't help but laugh. A new idea had already formed in my mind, and Yang Tianzhao's heavily bandaged face inadvertently made for a great disguise. What do we do? I said lightly. We hit the road directly. Originally, the plan was to sneak in and scout step by step, but after hearing about the black markets and underground trading hubs from the twin sisters, I had a faster route in mind. We hit the road directly. Zhang Hai and the others were stunned, while Sun Kuan thought he misheard and immediately asked, Brother Jiang, isn't that a bit too conspicuous? I shrugged, pointing out that aside from Yang Tianzhao, we were all strangers here. As long as we changed our clothes a bit, who would recognize us? Besides, the phantom poison squad that was hunting us had been wiped out, and Wang Shifu and Old Qin had already died by our hands. Hearing that, no one objected anymore. I continued, as long as we attract Chang Shinkai's attention, why worry about not finding Ren Yanxie? It's risky, but it's the fastest way. Zhang Hai was still concerned that the minibus was a wanted vehicle, and if the Berserk War Alliance saw it, they would definitely get suspicious. I smiled and told him that wasn't an issue. And since I said so, everyone trusted that I had a plan. We spread out the map to study it. This was the terminal of an abandoned railway line, a place rarely visited in the past. But as Rin Xiu just detected, there were quite a few people on the surface, so we had to find another entry point. At Banju No. 8 High School, a once bustling place now lay in ruins. The schoolyard was covered in thick white fog and weeds taller than a person. Ancient trees cast oppressive shadows. Classrooms and the cafeteria were overrun by vines, and the rubble was covered in green moss. Only a few lonely stars hung in the sky, while the quiet ground echoed with rustling sounds, as if something was digging. Then, a pair of mechanical arms burst from the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust, tearing open a massive hole as the minibus quietly emerged from the earth. Immediately after, it hummed and vibrated, rapidly transforming. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a massive mining dump truck. Ding! The Starbug's clear prompt rang out, and 4 transparent red Level 1 evolution crystals appeared in my hand. They were synthesized from the 3 Level 1 mutated crystal cores taken from Old Qin, along with the crystal core and a portion of meat from the mutated dog we just killed. The rest of the meat had been stored in the spatial inventory. I flicked my finger, feeling relieved. Compared to mutated crystal cores that mutants couldn't absorb directly, evolution crystals offered clear, immediate benefits. The more of these, the better. I gave the order to move out. Everyone filled in the massive hole to hide our tracks, then climbed onto the roof of the giant truck. Because if anyone came here and saw this crater, they would definitely get suspicious. Yang Tianzhao held the Type 95 automatic rifle, while Sun Quan and Zhang Hai each held a pistol. All 3 were dressed in black. Wearing leather boots and standing on the roof of the truck, they looked imposing as the vehicle roared into motion. By now, the sun was just starting to rise. Inside the Berserk War Alliance, the scene was already loud and bustling. Armored off-road vehicles constantly moved in and out of the district, carrying everything from compressed biscuits to mutated beast meat for trading. Compared to the strict defenses of the Huyang People's Front, this place seemed looser. But if you looked closely, the high-rise buildings in the CBD had hidden watchtowers with gun barrels pointing down. Amidst the tangled vines, there were even vine bridges leading to high-end areas guarded by armed sentries. On the streets, all sorts of vehicles were parked haphazardly. Old shops had been taken over as street stalls, and some places even had seductive women on display to attract customers. The liveliest place was still the Zhanming Market, located right in the center of the district, where squads brought the supplies they looted or scavenged to trade. Virum, a convoy of modified motorcycles roared through the street without slowing down, sending pedestrians scrambling out of the way in panic. Leading the pack was a bald man with a lip ring and sunglasses, wearing a black leather jacket with 2 bandoliers crisscrossed over his chest. A flag bearing the image of a vulture was planted on his back. A cruel smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth as he watched pedestrians get knocked over. The gang behind him cheered wildly, fully displaying their ferocity. The last 4 motorcycles were dragging massive, bleeding mutated beasts behind them. When the pedestrians saw the flag, they cursed under their breath. Someone gritted their teeth and muttered that the vulture squad would get what was coming to them one day. But his friend quickly covered his mouth, warning him that these guys held serious grudges. The convoy stopped in front of the Berserk War Alliance's doors. A middle-aged man with slicked-back hair ran out, scolding the bald man not to be so arrogant lest he get sniped one day, but his eyes were filled with sheer greed. The bald man laughed out loud, patted his shoulder, called him Yukoshan, and bragged about bringing good stuff today. 4 whole mutated beasts that took his team half a month and quite a few men to hunt down. He demanded a worthy price. Yu Koshan's eyes instantly lit up when he saw the four mutated beasts behind the convoy, the smile on his face growing wider and wider. He nodded repeatedly, showering him with praise for being a big spender, saying that with just these four mutated beasts this week, Cripple Lu's squad was fully qualified to take second place on the Berserk Battle Alliance's trading leaderboard. Cripple Lu frowned slightly but quickly relaxed, a smug look clear on his face. Because being directly praised by the manager of the Berserk Battle Alliance's trading market was something to gloat about. Especially since the trading leaderboard was extremely important. Just getting into the top 3 granted full trading privileges. You could trade for any item in the market without restrictions. And in these times of scarce supplies, there were many things money simply couldn't buy. Full trading privileges meant it was easier to recruit more people and upgrade equipment, making the squad stronger and attracting more survivors to join. It was just a pity that he still couldn't take the top spot this time. Cripple Lu frowned and asked who was in first place, his alloy prosthetic leg tapping heavily against the ground. Yu Koshan leaned in close to his ear and whispered that it was the Mad Python Squad. They had accidentally stumbled upon the Jia County Riot Squad's armory and scored a lot of good loot. Hearing this name, Cripple Lu's expression softened. He just snorted lightly, saying it seemed those guys got lucky. Right at that moment, a sudden commotion erupted from the street corner, accompanied by ear-piercing screams. Panicked survivors rushed out from the intersections and hurriedly hid in the shops on both sides of the street. Immediately after came the heavy sound of collisions, the screech of tearing metal, and the continuous crashing of collapsing structures. Cripple Lu muttered in annoyance, wondering which squad was causing an even bigger scene than his own, while Yu Koshan furrowed his brows tightly. Because even though the Berserk Battle Alliance's management was looser than the Huyang People's Front, if they let this chaos continue, the trading market wouldn't be able to operate. He had already secretly decided in his heart, if it was just some ignorant little squad, they definitely had to be punished. Right after, a massive silhouette appeared from the corner. As soon as it showed up, it swatted a parked car aside like a toy. When Yu Koshan got a clear look at it, his eyes widened and his jaw dropped, almost unable to close it, because it was clearly a massive mining dump truck. As a local of Banju City, he had heard of this type of vehicle. Even though he hadn't seen one with his own eyes, just looking at its size was enough to guess. It was just that, even in the rumors he had heard, there had never been one this massive. It was a true giant monster. He was both angry and shocked, completely unable to understand how something so huge managed to get in here without a single guard reporting it. Using this thing as a mode of transport was absolute madness. At the same time, dissatisfaction with the Berserk Battle Alliance's guards welled up inside him. As my squad's mining trucks squeezed into the street, the ground trembled with every beat. The motorcycles parked along the road were crushed aside by the massive tires, and the off-road vehicles in front of it looked like nothing more than children's toys. Yang Tianzhao stood on the roof of the truck, his legs trembling from a mix of excitement and fear. Because we were currently wanted by the Berserk Battle Alliance, yet we were still brazenly and openly marching right in. The shop owners he used to have to bow and greet were now all cowering inside the abandoned stores, poking their heads out to look. Luckily, his head was wrapped in medical bandages, completely covering his face. Compared to him, Zhang Hai and Sun Kuan were incredibly confident, holding their shotguns and looking down from above with an intimidating aura. Zhang Hai even fired a shot, turning a store's signboard into a honeycomb, making the owner who was about to curse instantly shut up. A few torn billboards dangled from the front of the truck, and both sides of the body were covered in mud and plaster, clear signs of scraping through narrow alleys. After taking the corner, I suddenly accelerated the truck on the straightaway. The 1,743 horsepower engine roared deafeningly. The mining truck, weighing over 100 tons, crushed the concrete road, carrying a terrifying pressure as it charged straight toward the front of the Berserk Battle Alliance's market. A few motorcycles flying vulture flags couldn't dodge in time and were sent flying. Their front ends were mangled, parts scattering everywhere. Luckily, the riders reacted fast, rolling out of the way to escape death. Cripple Lu gritted his teeth in anger, because each motorcycle cost a lot of resources and effort. But facing this giant monster, he didn't dare unleash his fury. The truck was too tall, too long, too massive. Plus, there were 3 people holding shotguns and Type 95 automatic rifles standing on the roof. Their aura was not to be messed with. Moreover, shotguns were devastating close-range weapons. Even within the Berserk Battle Alliance, they weren't easy to come by. Possessing this kind of firepower along with a massive mining truck was clearly a symbol of absolute power. Cripple Lou racked his brain, but couldn't recall any faction that matched the image before him. Right then, the truck door opened. I was the first to step down, a 5.8mm Type 05 submachine gun slung over my shoulder. Behind me was Ing in a cold black leather outfit, and Zero looking indifferent, a dagger spinning lightly on his fingertips. Sun Quan, Zhang Hai, and Yang Tianzhao followed as well, gripping their weapons tightly as they stood behind me. The whole group, standing together, exuded the aura of people who had rolled through countless life and death battles. An aura forged in blood and fire, not just empty aggression. At the very least, in front of us, Cripple Lou didn't dare open his mouth. The middle-aged man immediately changed his attitude, introducing himself as the manager of this place, named Zhang Shan, though everyone usually called him Yuko Shan. He smiled and apologized for his poor eyesight in not recognizing our status, his eyes constantly sizing me up from head to toe. As the manager of the Berserk Battle Alliance's market, Zhang Shan had met countless people, so his judgment of character was very sharp. He realized that my Stone Shadow squad exuded a very distinct, iron-blooded aura, the kind of presence only truly powerful elite survivor squads possessed. But a squad like this, if they were from Banju City, should have made a name for themselves long ago. Yet he had never seen us before, not to mention that massive mining truck, which he had never even heard of. I casually replied that we came from a place very far away. Zhang Shan curiously asked just how far, but I had no intention of explaining. Being flatly rejected, his expression grew a bit stiff, a hint of anger rising in his heart. Because normally, even elite squads had to show him some respect. But without knowing what cards I held, he could only suppress his anger and force a fake smile. Even Cripple Lou, the guy whose motorcycles I had just crushed, didn't dare open his mouth. Because the more arrogant someone was, the more likely they had the strength to back it up. Just the giant truck and the pile of weapons on our shoulders were enough to make many survivor squads drool with envy. Thinking of this, Zhang Shan felt a bit better. I looked straight at him and asked if this was the trading market, saying we wanted to go in and make a few trades. Zhang Shan instantly perked up, enthusiastically welcoming us, saying that coming to the Berserk Battle Alliance was the right choice. They had all kinds of weapons here, mutated cores, mutated beast meat, even beautiful women, as long as you had something to trade. He smiled obsequiously, hurriedly inviting us into the market, but I just glanced at him without saying a word. Sun Quan spoke up coldly, asking if he was the boss of the Berserk Battle Alliance to be talking so much, because only the real boss was qualified to discuss trades with me. I shot Sun Quan a glance, silently praising his quick wit, while Zhang Hai looked regretful that his badass line had been stolen. Zhang Shan was so mad he almost coughed up blood, but he still had to swallow his anger and say that their boss was very busy. He couldn't show up for every little trade. If it was just a normal transaction, he could make the decision on his behalf. Cripple Lou stood to the side listening to everything, secretly curious about what these arrogant people actually had that made them dare demand to see Chang Shunkai directly. Because he wasn't someone you could just meet just because you wanted to. Zhang Hai spoke up, saying we had 20 guns. That number was a massive fortune anywhere, since many elite squads were proud enough just to have 5 or 6. Zhang Shan was startled, admitting they had some strength, but still felt it wasn't enough to be arrogant enough to demand to see Boss Kai. Meanwhile, Cripple Lou couldn't help but sneer, saying the Berserk Battle Alliance wasn't that desperate for guns. Zhang Shan's expression also turned cold, clearly wanting to crush our momentum. I didn't say anything. I just opened my palm, revealing 4 sparkling, crimson evolution crystals, continuously radiating a soft red glow. Cripple Lou flinched slightly. At first, he didn't recognize what they were, but he quickly sensed the energy flowing inside them. As an Esper, he instantly realized something was extraordinary. Right then, I saw Zhang Shan standing next to him start breathing heavily, his eyes wide. He blurted out in a hoarse voice that those were evolution crystals, and 4 of them at that. I casually glanced at him, saying he had some knowledge after all. If I had said that a few seconds earlier, he definitely would have cursed me in his head. But now it was completely different. He hurriedly and humbly replied that he had just heard the boss mention them before. Zhang Shan's heart was in turmoil. Chang Shunkai had mentioned evolution crystals more than once in his daily life. Every time, it was with a mix of envy and awe. Once, a very powerful outside squad had shown one off while passing through Banju City. But even that crystal didn't have the intense energy feel of the 4 in front of me. Evolution crystals were already rare, and they carried a special significance. In this apocalypse, only the military or the government, with their massive technology and resources, had the capability to create them. No matter how strong Chang Shinkai was, he couldn't compare to the factions that had built safe-base cities. Someone who possessed evolution crystals, especially ones this pure, was practically draped in a radiant halo in Zhang Shan's eyes. He instantly changed his attitude, extremely respectfully inviting us inside, saying he would go fetch their boss right away. As he spoke, he glanced at a red-haired young man not far away. He barked, "I'll go. What are you standing there for? Hurry up and lead our VIPs to the Overlord Hall." Go was startled, because he had never seen Zhang Shan treat outsiders with such reverence before. But he quickly bowed in greeting, leading me and my squad deep into the trading market. Watching this scene, Cripple Lu standing nearby felt a massive shock. He couldn't help but curse inwardly. Damn it, these guys actually made Zhang Shan go fetch Chang Shunkai personally. What the hell is an evolution crystal anyway? It looks like it's definitely more valuable than mutated beast meat or guns. Cripple Lu stared intently at my back, muttering in his heart. The Overlord Hall of the Alliance Market was reserved only for squads that made the top 10 on the weekly trading contribution leaderboard. Being able to step in here was synonymous with status and position within the Berserk Battle Alliance. When the red-haired young man led me in, there were already 6 squads seated in the hall. Among them, one squad occupied the spot closest to the main seat. Their captain was a short young man with eyes as sharp as a hawk's. His hands rested casually on the table, looking lazy, but his whole body was like a crouching tiger, his muscles hiding an explosive power ready to unleash at any moment. When he saw us walk in, he froze. His scrutinizing gaze eventually locked onto Ing, making his throat go dry. Ing was wearing a tight black outfit and a form-fitting short skirt, her slender figure alluring, her black hair cascading down like a waterfall. She was the kind of beauty who could bring disaster just by standing there. The young man whispered about how beautiful this woman was. The squads that could sit in the Overlord Hall of Banju City were by no means ordinary, but no one could figure out where my Shuring squad came from. Suspicious gazes immediately fell on us. Someone even grumbled in annoyance that Zhang Shan must have taken a bribe again. Bringing a no-name squad in here? Can just any ordinary survivor step foot into the Overlord Hall now? Even though Ing and I didn't lack an imposing aura, the Espers in the hall quickly noticed a crucial detail. We didn't emit any obvious Esper energy fluctuations. Priority trading rights here were earned through brutal, bloody struggles. Yet now, an unfamiliar squad had just shown up. No reputation, and not even Espers. Their dissatisfaction was inevitable. I didn't care. I casually picked an iron table nearest to the door and sat down. Where we sat didn't matter. Meeting Chang Shunkai and finding Ren Yunsha was my real goal. At least this kid knows his place. A short young man scoffed coldly when he saw us take the seats near the door. He turned and asked Cripple Lu who we were. Cripple Lu just glanced at him and replied coldly that no matter who we weren't people he should mess with. The young man immediately misunderstood, thinking Cripple Lu was goading him. Already petty by nature, his irritation grew. His eyes swept over Ing, and he quickly made a decision. He sneered, assuming we were, at best, just connected to some district chief of the Berserk Battle Alliance. Completely confident in his own judgment, he didn't notice Cripple Lu looking at him like he was an absolute idiot. Guo Qingchun, the captain of the Mad Python squad, ignored him and turned to order a freckle-faced young man. He told him to come over and tell me that he wanted to buy the woman in the leather pants, in exchange for a Type 95 automatic rifle and 2 grenades. In his mind, The highest tier trades here only revolved around firearms and mutant beast meat. And women, no matter how rare, couldn't compare to guns. Not to mention, the price he offered was more than enough to show his sincerity. The freckle-faced young man immediately stood up and walked briskly toward me, secretly hoping to handle this task well. I sat still, patiently waiting for him to approach, an unreadable smile flickering across my face. He looked at me, pointed at Ing, and said his boss had taken a liking to her. The closer he got, the clearer he saw Ying's beauty, a perfect blend of fiery hotness and icy aloofness. Even he couldn't help but gulp, though he knew damn well she didn't belong to him. Ing didn't react at all. Her cold gaze remained fixed solely on me. I didn't say a word either, not even sparing a glance at the young man. Suddenly, I drew my gun. The pitch-black muzzle pointed straight at his head, freezing him in place. On the other side, Guo Chengchun jumped up in shock, screaming to ask what the hell I was doing. But before he could finish, a gunshot rang out. The freckle-faced young man's head exploded. His body crumpled to the floor, blood splattering everywhere. The entire hall instantly plunged into a horrified silence. Guo Chengchun stood frozen in disbelief, staring at the corpse before him as shock surged through his heart. Fury and confusion warred within him. How could there be such a lunatic, daring to kill someone right here in the Overlord Hall, and a member of the Mad Python Squad, no less? Holding the Type 54 pistol, I shot him a glance and said casually that I absolutely hated it when people set their sights on my squad members. Just one simple sentence, yet the arrogant, overbearing aura it exuded made everyone shudder. Even Cripple Lu was completely caught off guard. He had figured Guo Chengchun would run into trouble, but he never expected us to just execute someone on the spot. This sheer ruthlessness and audacity left him utterly bewildered, unable to fathom what kind of faction we belonged to. The other squads in the hall looked at me and my teammates as if they were staring at a bunch of monsters. Guo Chengchun stood paralyzed for a long time, still unable to process it, when Zhang Shan hurriedly walked in. When he saw the corpse lying right next to me, his heart skipped a beat, and his expression changed drastically. He looked at the gun in my hand, then recognized the dead man as the freckle-faced guy from the Mad Python Squad. His questioning gaze immediately shot toward me. I didn't say anything, just calmly looked over at Guo Chengchun. Right at that moment, a deep, low voice echoed from outside. The man who walked in was handsome, with a wicked, demonic aura. His blood-red eyes swept across the entire hall. Just seeing him made many people's hearts pound. Chang Shunkai, the boss of the Berserk Battle Alliance, had arrived. An invisible pressure instantly enveloped the hall. The moment Guo Chengchun saw Chang Shunkai, he was overjoyed, as if he had found his savior. He glared at me with venomous resentment, thinking to himself that my group was definitely doomed this time. He immediately raised his voice to accuse us, shouting that he didn't know what connections we used to get in here, but we had killed a member of the Mad Python Squad the moment we arrived. Chang Shunkai only frowned slightly, showing no signs of anger. His sharp gaze landed on me. Even though he couldn't sense any Esper energy fluctuations, his intuition told him that the man standing before him was the leader. I looked at him and smiled. Finally, the main character has arrived. I casually remarked that those guys were too noisy, buzzing around arrogantly like flies in the Overlord Hall, so I just did him a favor and taught them a little lesson. Hearing this, Zhang Shan almost coughed up blood. As for Chang Shunkai, his eyes flashed, and the corners of his mouth curled into a faint smile. He turned to look at Ago. Ago's heart clenched. He quickly leaned in close to Chang Shinkai's ear and whispered the entire sequence of events from start to finish. After listening, Chang Shinkai suddenly let out a sharp shout and delivered a brutal kick straight into Ago. Ago screamed in agony as he was kicked flying over 10 meters. He slammed hard into the wall, caving his chest in, and spat out blood, dying on the spot. Immediately after, Chang Shinkai spun around and swung his hand in a sweeping backhand toward Guo Chengchun. They were clearly several meters apart, but a deafening slap rang out, making everyone's scalp tingle. Guo Chengchun's face was slapped sideways, his teeth flying out as his body smashed through several chairs. Chang Shunkai coldly cursed him for being useless, unable to protect his own men, and completely ignorant of the immensity of heaven and earth. provoking people he shouldn't have provoked, and then daring to rely on him to win back his face. He ordered Guo Qingchun to get the hell out, take his people, and leave the trading zone. He was banned from setting foot here for 3 months. Guo Qingchun trembled all over, only one thought echoing in his mind. He had provoked someone he shouldn't have. Before leaving, he shot a hateful glare at Cripple Lu. Cripple Lu sat frozen on the iron table, his limbs trembling, his heart filled with terror. After all, he was the one who had secretly pushed Guo Qingchun into this mess. After everyone left, Chang Shenkai sat down across from me, a faint smile playing on his lips. He introduced himself as Chang Shenkai, a man who liked to keep things quick and clean. He said he came personally because Zhang Shan mentioned we had some good stuff to trade. I smiled back, introduced the Shuriying squad, and confirmed that we did indeed have some good stuff. At this point, I glanced around, feeling a bit disappointed that he hadn't brought any women with him. I opened my palm. 4 crimson evolution crystals radiated a shimmering, energetic glow. The smile on Chang Shinkai's face instantly vanished. His eyes couldn't hide his greed. He immediately ordered Zhang Shan to clear everyone out. Without needing to be told twice, Guo Qingchun, Cripple Lu, and the other squads quickly retreated because they understood perfectly well. A trade that required Chang Shenkai to handle personally was absolutely not simple, and he didn't want anyone witnessing it. When it was just the 2 of us left in the hall, Chang Shenkai looked me dead in the eye and asked, emphasizing every word, "Where did you get these evolution crystals?" "I believe you're a smart man. You must have already guessed where we're from," I replied with a faint smile. Chang Shenkai fell silent for a moment before speaking up, asking which safe zone I came from, Zhonghai or Xingqing. Not long ago, he had been resting his eyes in the Berserk Battle Alliance, plotting how to deal with the Luoxing Society. But when Zhang Shan reported that a group of strangers had brought 4 evolution crystals and specifically demanded to trade with him directly, he had instantly jolted awake and rushed over. Evolution crystals were the thing he desired most, second only to power. Moreover, they carried a special significance that forced him to treat this with absolute seriousness. In this apocalypse, human cities were cut off from one another by zombies, mutant beasts, and countless unknown dangers. They were like isolated islands, but the military might represented by the government was still a force not to be underestimated. If he could establish a connection with the government military here in Banju City, he wouldn't just have enough power to crush the Luoxing Society. He could unify the entire city and become its true overlord. Zhonghai, I answered casually. Chang Shinkai's pupils shrank. Just as he had predicted, we were from the government. No wonder we were so arrogant and had evolution crystals in our possession. He chimed in, mentioning that the Zhonghai safe zone had recently been attacked by subterranean mutant monsters. He heard that an old general named Zhang had nearly lost his life and that the situation was dire. Yet, here I was, showing up at such a sensitive time. My heart churned. I knew all about the mutant monsters attacking Zhonghai. There really was a mutant beast nest nearby. General Zhang had indeed been severely injured, but Banju was so far from Zhonghai. How could Chang Shenkai have such detailed information? I feigned slight surprise, remarking that he sure knew a lot. Seeing that rare look of surprise, Chang Shenkai couldn't hide his smugness. He had finally gained the upper hand in this conversation. He explained that there were still a few stable communication towers operating in Banju City, and radio waves hadn't completely vanished. He also had a girl by his side who specialized in listening to broadcasts, compiling outside news, and reporting back to him. After saying that, he chuckled faintly, stating that when you control a major faction, you can't just cover your eyes and plug your ears. If you want to grow, you have to interact with the outside world. Seeing the smugness flash across his face, Zhang Hai and Sun Kuan exchanged a glance, trying so hard to hold back their laughter that their expressions twisted. They both knew perfectly well that Chang Shenkai had completely bought into the idea that the Shuriying squad was from the Zhonghai safe zone, without a single shred of doubt. Chang Shenkai made his trade offer, stating that he had mutant crystal cores, 3 level 1 mutant crystal cores for 1 evolution crystal. He held up 3 fingers, looking dead serious, because he had heard that the government could use 2 mutant crystal cores to synthesize 1 evolution crystal. So, in his eyes, this price was already showing a lot of sincerity. I just smiled faintly and didn't reply. Zhang Hai spoke up at this moment, his voice deep, saying that offering 3 level 1 mutant crystal cores meant Chang Shunkai was severely underestimating the scientists of the Zhonghai safe zone. Their latest evolution crystals contained 3 times the energy of the older versions. Chang Shinkai's facial muscles twitched slightly. A mere subordinate daring to mock his ignorance? How arrogant. But given the situation, it wasn't convenient for him to lose his temper, so he just turned to look at me. Then how does Captain Jiang want to trade? Name your price. 2 level 2 mutant crystal cores for 1 evolution crystal, I replied calmly. Hearing this, Chang Shunkai almost jumped out of his skin, and Zhang Shan's jaw dropped. What kind of concept was a level 2 mutant crystal core? A level 2 mutant beast had the strength equivalent to 5 or 6 level 1 beasts, and that gap in power couldn't be calculated by simple addition. To kill a beast like that and extract its crystal core required paying a massive price. To this day, no squad in the combat market had ever managed to hunt a level 2 mutant beast and bring it in for trade. Chang Shunkai angrily retorted, saying that 1 level 2 mutant crystal core should be worth at least 3 evolution crystals. That was the exchange rate other safe zones had announced over the radio. But I just repeated my demand, refusing to yield an inch. He lost his temper, stating bluntly that they only had exactly 2 level 2 mutant crystal cores. These things were incredibly rare. It had to be a 1-to-1 trade at the very least. His words genuinely surprised me. I had only thrown out that condition initially to test his strength. I never expected Chang Shunkai to actually have 2 level 2 mutant crystal cores in his possession. A faction capable of killing 2 level 2 mutant beasts was absolutely not to be underestimated. So there's no room for negotiation then? I stood up abruptly, turned to Zhang Hai and the others, and told them to leave. In truth, I never had any intention of trading the evolution crystals. My goal was simply to use Chang Shunkai to gain free reign within the Berserk Battle Alliance, to openly search for Rin Yinsha. Because of that, I had planned to stall for time right from the start. I could clearly see the greed in Chang Shinkai's eyes. There was no way he'd let me walk away that easily. Sure enough, the moment I turned my back, Chang Shinkai's deep voice rang out from behind, telling me to wait. He tapped his fingers lightly on the table, a thoughtful look on his face, and said that since we had come from so far away, there was no need to rush off. He asked for some time to think over the price we offered. Fine by me. I turned back and smiled casually at Chang Shinkai. Seeing that smile, a flash of malice flickered in his eyes. As much as he wanted to connect with the government military, our group was clearly too dangerous. Dangerous enough to make a notoriously ruthless man like him start harboring bloody thoughts. Right at that moment, a gentle voice drifted in from outside. Hearing that voice, my heart skipped a beat. It sounded so much like Renshiyu. I turned my head and saw a girl in a white dress, wearing white gloves, her face concealed by a silk veil, walking in. Even though she was covered up, I could still recognize many familiar features on her face. The delicate, high bridge of her nose, and especially those slightly grayish eyes, which were almost identical to Renshiyu's. My heart instantly confirmed it. I had finally found her. Shiyu's younger sister. The girl in the white dress looked like a little deer in the forest, outwardly fragile and delicate. But deep within her tranquil, lake-like eyes hid a rare sharpness. Watching her step inside, Chang Shinkai's eyes revealed a hint of smugness. Having such an outstanding woman under his command made him feel incredibly proud. Outside the combat market, inside the cargo truck, Renshiyu trembled slightly, her eyes instantly turning red. Had she found her sister? Her mental ability quickly locked onto the spiritual light of the girl in the white dress. Even though she couldn't clearly see her face, that familiar mental fluctuation alone was enough to bring her to tears. Within Ren Yuncha's consciousness, Renshiyu's gentle voice echoed, saying, "I'm here to take you home." The smile on the white-dressed girl's face suddenly vanished. Her body trembled slightly, her expression filled with shock as she let out a very soft gasp. But immediately after, Rin Yinsha quickly regained her composure. Only her eyes, sweeping over me and my teammates, flashed with an elusive, strange glint. Chang Shinkai asked in a deep voice if she had any suggestions. Rin Yinsha had just opened her mouth to say she had recently discovered a special type of plant when Chang Shunkai raised his hand to cut her off. Even though he had special feelings for her, when it came to major matters, he absolutely refused to let emotions dictate his decisions. He expressed his displeasure, thinking Rin Yunsha was being careless today, something that important couldn't just be casually revealed to outsiders. Rin Yunsha immediately bowed her head and apologized, looking frail, but her downcast eyes were strangely calm. Those two words, special plant, instantly put me on high alert. My intuition told me that the thing she mentioned was very likely the plant capable of secreting active metal. While lost in thought, my eyes never left Rin Yunsha. Compared to Shiyu, her aura was completely different. Both looked delicate, but Shiyu was cold and distant. Yunsha, on the other hand, was as fragile as a petal in the wind, easily evoking a protective instinct in others. To remain so calm in a situation like this girl was clearly far from simple. As a princess of the Rin Corporation, Yunsha was truly no less formidable than Shiyu. My gaze didn't escape Chang Shinkai's notice. His face gradually darkened because I dared to stare at Rin Yunsha right in front of him. I feigned curiosity and asked who this girl was. Chang Shinkai tried to suppress his anger, introducing her as Rin Yunsha, the strategist of the Berserk Battle Alliance, who had been with him for a long time. Just a hint of interest from me was enough for him to consider it a massive disrespect. If it were anyone else, he probably would have gouged their eyes out by now. Hearing the name Rin Yunsha come straight from his mouth, I was completely reassured. My ultimate goal was right in front of me. Zhang Hai and Sun Kuan exchanged a glance, their hands unconsciously tightening around their guns. Countless plans flashed through my mind, from negotiating and trading to just snatching her right on the spot. But right then, I saw Rin Yunsha's hands, hidden beneath the white silk, twitch slightly, subtly signaling me. She was warning me not to act rashly. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. Chang Shinkai regained his composure, stating that he hadn't hunted the level 2 mutant crystal cores all by himself. He needed to discuss it further with the other district chiefs, suggesting that we just rest for today. I smiled and agreed. Understanding Rin Yunsha's signal, I was in no rush. Chang Shinkai turned and told Zhang Shan to arrange the best room in the Lingtian Purple Pavilion for us to stay in. Zhang Shan immediately bowed and invited us to follow him out. Zhang Shan obsequiously led me and the others out of the Overlord Hall. Not long after we left, a deafening bang echoed from inside. Chang Shinkai had slammed both hands down on the iron table. The sturdy tabletop was dented inward by more than a knuckle's depth. His bloodshot eyes brimmed with a vicious glint as he stared in the direction we had left, then scoffed coldly. He muttered that the people from the Zhonghai safe zone really didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Rin Yunsha stood beside him with her head bowed, not saying another word. Suddenly, Chang Shunkai clutched his head, his face contorting in pain. Rin Yunsha immediately asked in a soft voice if his headache was acting up again, saying she would go get his medicine. Gritting his teeth, he told her to up the dosage a bit, guessing that the pain kept returning because his ability was on the verge of evolving. She just softly replied, yes, and left. The interior of the Lingtian Purple Pavilion was so extravagant, it made people forget this was the apocalypse. It was arguably the most luxurious place in Banju City. Zhang Shan brought us to the most lavish room, then respectfully withdrew. The moment the door closed, I immediately asked Rin Shiyu if anyone was watching us outside. She quickly and accurately pointed out every single position, from the northeast to the north, not missing a single person. I nodded, already forming a plan in my mind. I told Zhang Hai and Sun Kuan to draw all the curtains and take turns guarding the windows 24 hours a day, while the others took the chance to rest. Being deep inside the Berserk Battle Alliance's territory, and with Chang Shunkai being no easy opponent, I didn't dare let my guard down. I absolutely didn't want anything happening to any of my team members. There were only a few of us in the room right now. Ying and Li Yusin had stayed behind in the truck. The truck, driven by Ying, was parked right in front of the Purple Pavilion. If anything went wrong, they could provide backup immediately. As the curtains were drawn tight, the light in the room gradually faded into a dim gloom. Rin Shiyu stated firmly that she wanted to take her sister away. Chang Shinkai was not a good person. Her mental ability had already blanketed the area, giving her a clear grasp of the situation here. Rin Yunsha was just a fragile girl, yet she was by the side of a cold-blooded killer. She didn't dare imagine what could happen. The trauma of her past torment still haunted her. If it hadn't been for me, her fate would have been incredibly tragic. Now, as an older sister, she absolutely had to save her sibling. I told her in a low voice to rest easy, that I was here. Gripping my submachine gun, I leaned against the wall, facing the main door directly. At the slightest movement, I would open fire. My words seemed to soothe her heart. She nodded slightly, saying she believed in me. The two of us leaned against the wall together, the distance between our shoulders mere inches apart. Feeling my breath and my presence, an indescribable warmth welled up in Rin Shiyu's heart. A voice of gratitude echoed in my mind, and then she gently rested her head on my shoulder, saying she was going to take a quick nap. I didn't reply. I just sat quietly in the dark, gripping my gun tightly, feeling the steady rhythm of her breathing and the warmth beside me. I only had one thought in my mind. I had to get Rin Yunsha out of here at all costs. I didn't know how much time had passed, but it was completely dark outside. I opened my eyes just as Rin Shiyu softly warned me that someone was coming. Through the mental vision she shared, I saw a red dot heading straight for the purple pavilion. Zhang Hai and Sun Kuan immediately tensed up. Zero tightened his grip on his knife, his cold gaze fixed on the main door. A knock on the door rang out. I called out loudly, asking who it was. It was quiet outside for a moment before a faint voice called out a single word. I recognized it instantly. It was Rin Yunsha. I opened the door. Outside stood the girl in the white dress, quiet and still, like a lilac blooming in the night. The moment Rin Shiyu saw her sister, tears streamed down her face. The two sisters rushed forward and threw their arms around each other. I quietly stepped outside and pulled the door half shut. Watching that scene, even Zhang Hai felt a sting in his nose. Sun Kuan shot him a look, signaling that I had already stepped out. Zhang Hai finally snapped out of it, hurriedly grabbed his gun, and walked out, closing the door behind him. Everyone stood silently in the hallway waiting. From inside, muffled sobs could occasionally be heard. In this apocalypse, surviving and reuniting with loved ones was truly far too rare. A while later, the door opened. Rin Shiyu looked at me with an apologetic smile, her eyes still red, and said she was so sorry for the trouble. I just shook my head and replied softly, "It's fine."